Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the December 6th regular monthly meeting of the Tiverton Planning Board. Thank you for turning out. As always, I would like to start our meeting with a roll call of members to assure that we have a quorum. So I'll start with Rosemary Eva.
Present.
Amanda Souza Vieira.
Present.
Adam Raposa. Not present yet. Peter Bramante. Peter called and he is not feeling well tonight, so he will not be with us tonight. Christine Shea. Janice Gomes is also indisposed, but she may come later. Chris Shriver. Here. Tricia Hilton. And I'm Stu Hardy, I'm the chair. So we do have a quorum. And I'd also like to introduce Ashley Sweet, our interim planner and administrative officer of the planning board, sitting to my left, and directly to my left, Todd Romano, our legal counsel, and Ed Rotella, who you probably all know, our land use clerk. I don't see Rick Rogers, but Rick, the DPW director, is normally with us tonight. And of course, Nathan Michael, who is our brand new consulting engineer from the firm of Weston and Sampson. Welcome, Nathan. Welcome back, Nathan. So our first agenda item tonight is a minor two-lot subdivision on 384 King Road. That's the south side of King Road in an R80 zone. It's plat 603, lot 115. And this would be a rural subdivision, which is one of the three rural residential subdivisions that involves flexible zoning and open space. So I would invite anybody here representing the owner. The owner is A&C Realty, LLC. So, sir, could you introduce yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Russell, LDEC Engineering and Consulting, on behalf of the applicant or petitioner for this concept review for a rural subdivision. So I believe the board members received two plans in their packet. One is the actual survey of the subject property, and I think the other one is an exhibit along with a cover letter summarizing the petition. What the intent here is of this 30-plus acre parcel is to create two buildable lots is kind of the principal exercise here, which will front on King Road. We're looking to exercise the flex zoning. In fact, both of these lots are well in excess of the minimum requirements for a rural subdivision. The only real aspect of that flex zoning that's being utilized is the frontage. On one of the lots is proposing a 50-foot frontage. There are wetlands, for any of the board members who are familiar with this property, there's a significant amount of wetlands of that larger tract, but there is, on these two particular parcels, is predominantly upland or developable area. So it meets, I had spoken with Ashley in kind of a pre-submission consult to make sure that we had the open space required for each of these two lots. Both of these lots also have received soil suitability from DEM, so they can support a on-site wastewater treatment system, and they'll each have a private drinking water supply well. So that's the proposal in summary. Happy to entertain any questions the board members might have.
Do we have an affidavit?
So does anybody have any questions, or would you care if I started. Just a quick question or a comment, really, about the map. You're showing actually 3 lots on the plan, and lots 1 and 2 would be the buildable house lots, one of which is about 3 acres, and the other one is about 2.5 acres, and they have adequate frontage, and everything looks fine. But then, this lot that has not now yet been subdivided has a 3rd area, so proposed new lot number 3 is shown, but its dimensions are not shown on the plan, nor the acreage of it. So I'm just wondering, that would be nice to have when you submit your preliminary plan.
Understood, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, for concept plan review, we just wanted to highlight what the primary intent was, and that's for the 2 buildable lots on King Road. Certainly, when we come to a formal application, we would show that entire parcel.
Sure, and can you tell us the total acreage of this lot, of the lot that now exists, which is lot 115? What is the total acreage of it?
It's in excess of 31 acres.
Okay,
so.
31 acres. So lot 3 is really quite huge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, okay. And then the only other point I'd like to make is lot 3 would be landlocked, and that's going to pose a problem unless it were to be dedicated as open space. And then I don't think it would pose a problem, because it does not have frontage on an accepted street, so we tend not to like to create landlocked.
It has frontage on King Road, but it doesn't have practical frontage because the wetlands occupy the entire frontage for the remaining land. So
I didn't see any frontage on King Road.
it's not shown. You know, to your
Oh, I see. It's actually on the west side.
I mean to your earlier point, the entire property is not shown.
So that might solve the problem of being landlocked. The just 2 very simple things not to forget is we always like to see where the curb cuts are going to be, and I noticed that most of the land along King Road has a stone wall, so you kind of need to show where you're going to punch through that stone wall to give us the 2 curb cuts for lots new lot 1 and new lot 2. And then the only other thing I could think of was we always like to see the open space, the land that will be set aside in perpetuity as undevelopable. We'd like to see that outlined on the plan so that we know exactly where it is. And Ed, I would urge you to please get a copy of what has already been submitted and what then will come in as a preliminary plan to both the chairman of the Conservation Commission and the chairman of the Open Space Commission, so that they can see what's going on. So that's all I have to say.
I have a couple questions, Mr. Russell.
Sure.
What is the name of the development? We need something rather than subdivision plan.
As this application process advances, so will the detail. As of right now, we're just trying to vet this concept with the board, and I don't think the applicant's gone that far yet.
Well, then we would also need an affidavit that you are, since he's not here or not here, that you can represent them as well.
Okay.
And Stu brought up the narrative has 2 lots, and the plan has 3 lots. And as far as I'm concerned, we can't create a landlocked lot. And if you do go through the rural subdivision, you can no longer subdivide any of the properties.
That's understood. I just, again, we wanted to present this in concept with the focus being on these 2 buildable lots and the flex zoning
Right.
afforded to these lots under the rural subdivision regs.
And that note would be on the set of plans that comes through, I'm sure. You did
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
How much suitable land is there? Because normally when you do a rural subdivision, you're supposed to tell us how many lots could be on this parcel, and as opposed to the rural.
Yeah, that was, Ashley and I talked a little bit about that in the pre-app, and I wanted to kind of get the sense of the board on what you'd be looking for in the formal submission. So I'm assuming you want to see a yield plan for the overall property,
Right.
correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Go
that
by
would
the
be,
regs.
that would be done. I mean, it was not going to be done at this level, but certainly at the formal submission, we would do that.
And I'm also concerned because of location of this property and the amount of wetlands, your abutters are a junkyard. And I personally would like to make sure that the, future owners of this property would have potable water there. I don't want to see the town, give permission for subdivisions and not be able to build on it. So potable water is a concern of mine. out
Okay.
there. Let's see. And then you have the 100-foot setback from the buffer, as you're aware, of Rydom. And that's all I have to know.
Thank you.
So, anybody else have any comments or questions? Ashley, did you have any issues you'd like to raise with the board that you?
No, Mr. Russell and I had a meeting and we looked at the plans on the computer together and discussed. Initially, he had a different configuration, and we had discussed the option to do this as a rural residential compound. And so he was really coming here for a pre-application to understand from the board, what the preference would be in terms of application for this. I don't know that, it's the board's prerogative, but I don't know that we need a full yield plan for 2 lots on 31 acres. I think it's unlikely that you're gonna, most likely you're gonna show, excess of 2 lots for a subdivision. But it's the board's, decision on that, whether that or not that's something that they want to see. But really, that was the conversation we had was, whether or not to go by doing a conventional subdivision or doing a rural residential compound. We discussed these options, and he
Right.
came with this presentation hoping that the board would be in favor of this approach.
Yes, this member of the board would like to remind everybody that our comprehensive community plan calls for rural residential subdivisions in the R80 zoning district. And it's not a requirement, but it's something that we prefer to see, and I certainly prefer to see this. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. This is you're very much in step with our comprehensive community plan, with what you're proposing right now. I agree with Ashley that the yield plan is not going to give us any new information that will alter the application. And if it's something that is going to cost the applicant time and money, I just as soon waive it, but maybe we don't have it on our agenda for a formal vote. Maybe a show of hands? Could we do an informal poll? So I'll start with Christine. I'll put Christine on the spot and start with her.
Can you just explain it a little bit more, what the difference is?
So the requirement for a yields plan is when you're not doing a conventional subdivision, is for the applicant to lay out what a conventional subdivision would be under the requirements. So they would have to lay out, You know, if they were gonna develop the property, if they were gonna install a road, it would have to meet town standards, and then all the lots would have to meet frontage under the traditional zoning application. And that's called a yield plan, which says, you know, as an example, this lot would yield 10, this lot, if subdivided under the regulations, would yield 10 lots. Because in order to do a residential compound, you have to show that you're not exceeding what the density would be allowed. So that's the idea behind it, but with 31 acres and only actually developing 2 lots, I don't think it's even possible that you could exceed the density of what would be allowed under conventional zoning.
I'd be for waiving it.
Before waiving, okay, and Chris,
I would waive it as well.
and Amanda,
I don't think I would.
okay, that's fine. And Rosemary has already expressed her view.
I
My-
brought it up because it was a rural residential subdivision, as opposed
yeah.
to a minor subdivision.
Right, right.
Well, a minor if he was applying for a minor subdivision, which is originally what he had shown me before we had a conversation, that that is your yield essentially. You don't have to show a yield plan. The reason for showing a yield plan under the rural compound is that you can't develop more than 50% of the density of the underlying zoning. So he would have to show that through a yield plan that he couldn't get more than 4 lots under conventional zoning on 30 acres in order to be, I just want to make sure everyone else
There was a method
gets
to my
that.
madness.
I
Thank
know
you.
that. I just want to make sure everyone else hears that.
So,
Very good.
so Stu votes to waive the yield plan requirement.
I'm fine with waiving the yield plan. I do have one question, though. Is a corner of this lot was previously developed as part of the junkyard?
Was a corner of the lot previously developed?
As part of the junkyard?
Not that I'm aware of in the sense that
That passed through my head as well, because on the plan that you provided, it shows piles of materials. And I was wondering if that had something to do with the General Auto recycling operation next door.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, to my knowledge, I mean, these are essentially untouched areas. You know, they've not been,
Yes, if we could put it up on the screen, we're going to, excellent use of our new technology here, at least new to us. We're going to show you an aerial view of the site.
There. Tricia may have.
Tricia may have a good point.
where is this going to get projected? Behind it?
Here.
Okay.
But that's a question that you can take back to the owner. It's something that was raised.
Is,
The use of the property, the use of lot 136.
I guess I could answer it that the use of the remaining land, Lot 3, was, I mean, I guess anybody familiar with the history here with this, with General Auto, there was an issue with the town on that, okay, good, the cleared area there. But if we're, oh, perfect. So the yellow line is the assessor's outline of this parcel. Mm-hmm. So you can see as you work your way up to King Road, in that corner that land is undisturbed. So what you see that's disturbed in the I guess that would be southeast corner of the property, that's substantially within the remaining land, which we're calling Lot 3 for the purposes of this concept.
It's general horizontal.
So these buildings are all,
That's not even shown on this plan that you have. That's well off. It's, if you orient yourself,
The two lots are in the upper
you
corner
find
by
King Road,
I know, but we're talking about Lot 3.
Lot 3 is yes, that is that disturbed area, correct. I thought the question was related to the buildable lots.
No,
Okay.
So it is on this parcel.
It's more a question of what becomes of Lot 3, if in fact we create lots 1 and 2.
What is the intent of what's, I mean, he's not looking to, the applicant is not looking to create a buildable lot. He has no intent, no plans for the remaining land. There, with the current demand for buildable lots, the market, the way that it is at the moment, he's just acting on that. And he's looking to create these 2 buildable lots as kind of a primary goal. So the remaining land is just remaining land. There's no specific intent for that. There's nothing that would be part of this application that's forthcoming.
Do the buildings and vehicles remain on that portion of the lot?
I'm sorry, I don't understand it. Can they remain?
No, do they remain? Are they there today?
I believe what's on there today is the applicant, the owner's personal equipment material, if you will. Not part of the junkyard operation. I mean, as I mentioned before, anybody that's familiar with the history here, they were prohibited from expanding that operation to this parcel. The best of my knowledge, they immediately ceased in doing that, and I don't think that there's anything there that's related to the junkyard operation at the moment. In fact, it's my understanding from speaking to the applicant, it's all of his personal equipment, vehicles, what have you.
I think that answers my question. What I was really getting at is whether or not there's a continuing pre-existing non-conforming use, industrial use, on what would essentially be parcel 3, but you're saying that to the best of your knowledge, other than personal property, the owner does.
Yeah, I mean, I think the owner would need to answer that. I wouldn't want to speak on his behalf, but what I just stated is my understanding of that use.
So some years ago, there was an issue about wetlands, and I believe that an agreement was worked out between the owner and RIDEM, and RIDEM did issue a wetland permit with restrictions. And it would be very helpful to the board to have a copy of that, since we are talking about this entire 30-acre parcel. We'd be interested to see that. I think that's relevant to the, so if you could please make that part of the packet that you submit.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, but I
know it's public info, it's publicly available information, and we could find it ourselves, but it would be easier if you did the work for us.
If it's related to that lot, it most certainly will, but I believe, my recollection, that it was primarily related to lot 112, not 115. So, but if there's anything related to 115, happy to do that.
Right, but I think that the non-expansion of the activity that was taking place on lot 112 would be of great interest, because then we could demonstrate that would not spill into lot 113.
Certainly, I'd happy
In the
to
future.
provide any record information on that
Right,
on that
okay.
subject.
And a complete site plan.
I'm sorry?
And a complete site plan.
She's asking for you to show the entirety of
Right,
lot
correct.
3.
That's what we're here for, the whole
Yeah, he's already,
Yeah.
he's already
Parcel.
promised to do that.
with all of this on it.
Oh, yeah. Good. Any other questions or comments from members of the board? And in that case, good luck, and we look forward to seeing you back.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
We're-
it's okay.
So our next two agenda items have to do with Brookdale Secundit Bay Manor. And I'd invite the Brookdale representatives, I believe we have 3 here tonight, who have come up from, 4, who have come up from Tennessee to present this. This is, well, they're doing that. I'll give a little background here. This would be a new building on the Brookdale Secundit Bay Manor campus, which is at 1215 Main Road, just north of the Secundit River Bridge on the west side of Main Road, in an R40 zoned area. It's Plat 301, and then there are 4 lots involved. Lot 136, 137, 138, and 139. The new building would be 18,000 square feet. It would be a memory care center, basically on 1 floor. And we do have memos from both Ashley and Nathan with their comments on it. And maybe before I ask the applicant to give a brief presentation, I should ask our legal counsel, should we now deal with the issue of an advertised, notified public hearing?
For the DPR review.
Yes, for the DPR review.
We can do that now if you want to.
I think it would probably be best to do that now and get that out of the way. The reason, the issue here is that this application is being considered on 2 tracks, so to speak, as a major land development, which involves 3 stages of review, and also as a development plan review zoning Article 20 project, which only has 2 stages of review. The development plan review requires the planning board to make a determination of whether or not we would like to have an advertised public hearing with notification sent out to all of the abutters. Now, because this is also a major land development, we will have an opportunity for a full and thorough public hearing at the master plan stage. But that's the decision we have to make, and I'm going to ask Ashley to explain it a little better than I did.
Sure. So-
You raised it in your memo.
I did. So for this application, as Stu said, is subject to DPR, Development Plan Review, and Major Land Development. Development Plan Review is not a stepped process. You're required to do a pre-application, and then it's a submission with a 65-day time clock for decision. Major land development is a stepped process with master plan, preliminary plan, and final plan, with master plan having a 90-day time clock for decision. The problem that happens when these 2 converge is that the time periods don't align, and it becomes problematic that you would essentially be required to approve DPR in a shorter time frame than you'd even have to review a master plan. So My suggestion on how to handle this for this application, because they've both been applied for by the applicant simultaneously, is that there's a mutual agreement between the planning board and the applicant that the development plan review time clock is extended past the 65 days to allow you to do a review of master plan and render a decision. And then upon preliminary plan, there's a requirement for a public hearing, which could serve as the public hearing for the preliminary plan and also for the development plan review. And you could render a decision on preliminary plan and development plan review at the same time. That's really the only logical way that I can come up with to make these things, two things that don't fit.
Also because the elements of the preliminary plan and DPR review.
Yes. So at a master plan, you're still at a conceptual stage, and I don't want you to be in a position where you're approving a development plan review application, which is further along in the process in terms of information than the master plan that you're reviewing at the same time. They don't align well. So with the applicant's agreement, I would suggest that you review the master plan using the 90-day timeframe or less if it's not needed for the entire 90 days. Render a decision on the master plan with the agreement from the applicant that the preliminary plan, that the development plan review time clock is extended to match preliminary plan, and then render those decisions at the same time, because those applications are similar in nature in terms of what's required for review and approval. Going forward, we're gonna ask applicants to, when both of them are required, which is only a small number of circumstances where the regulations require an application for both at the same time, we will have the applicant apply for master plan and not apply for DPR until they are applying for preliminary plan, so that those two things align better going forward. But the applicant, has applied for both. We have to process both applications, and this was the best way I could come up with to make that work better.
So we don't have to extend time clocks today. We will have to do that when we continue this deliberation to our January 10 regular monthly meeting, and we do plan to have you on January 10. And at that time, we can coordinate the two. We can make sure that the process moves forward in tandem properly at that time. But tonight, the decision we have to make is simply with respect to do we want to have, does the planning board want to have an advertised, notified public hearing? This is a process that takes, Ashley, 3 weeks of advertising, something like that?
14 days.
Or 14 days of advertising in a local newspaper, and certified letters to all of the abutters, notifying them that a hearing will be coming up on such and such a date.
In this case, it's less of an issue because they have to do that at preliminary plan anyway for major land development. So you could waive the requirement for DPR to hold a public hearing. You're still going to have a public hearing for the major land development at preliminary plan. It's almost
Exactly.
duplicative to have them for both and kind of unnecessary.
Exactly, but I think legal counsel was suggesting that to stay within the letter of the law, that we really should waive that.
Yes.
Waive that tonight, understanding that that we will have an advertised, notified public hearing at preliminary plan stage as a major land development. So,
And just, I do make note of this in the memo, but just for anyone that hasn't seen the memo, the DPR has been certified and the 65-day time clock begins upon certification. So you have until January 25th, unless that gets extended. And your master plan major land development has been certified basically at the same time. that gets 90 days for a decision, and that expires on February 19th.
Right, so we can make sure that the two things are compatible at our next meeting on January 10. So tonight, what I'm going to ask you to do is vote. We're going to have a motion and a formal vote to waive the requirement under DPR, Article 20, for an advertised, notified public hearing. Understanding that we're going to get that at the preliminary plan stage when we under the major land development tract. So if I explain that, I don't know if my explanation made things simpler or more difficult to understand, but if everybody understands what we're doing, it's really a legal technicality, but it needs to be done. And this is another good reason why our zoning code needs to be cleaned up. So I would make the motion that the planning board waive the requirement under Article 20 Development Plan Review for a advertised, notified public hearing on this application. I need a second.
I'll second.
I think Amanda,
I did.
yes, I think you beat
Sure.
everybody.
Sorry, guys.
So Stu Hardy has made a motion, Amanda Sousa Vieira has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Everybody understands what we're doing here. We're not giving away any of our rights. Okay, so hearing no discussion, I will then ask for just a show of hands. And it looks like it's unanimous. Okay, now, sorry for that interruption, but we had to do it. So now, thank you for coming all the way up from Tennessee to be with us tonight, and I invite you to give us a brief overview of the new building on your campus.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to just make a quick introduction, and then I'll go over and share my screen so that everyone can see the plan. I'm Bubba Ingram. I'm the civil engineer, Nashville, Tennessee. We work with Brookdale Senior Living. They have facilities all over the country. Mike Hardwick is with Brookdale. He is the owner's representative here with us today. And then Clint Lucart with Perspectives Architecture is behind us in the first row here, trying to capture all the notes from this good discussion that we're having. So, okay, somebody took care of that for us. Magically, the site plan appears. And the project, as stated already, is an 18,000 square foot memory care facility added to the southwest corner of the existing Brookdale Secundit Bay facility. So there's a quite large building there I'm sure everyone here is familiar with. This is not a connected building. This is a separate building that is in what is currently yard area. There was an allusion to 4 tracks that we are going to need to clean up with an administrative subdivision that will happen later in our mini-step process, where we will combine the 4 tracks and
We call them lots.
and redivide into 2 lots so that each building has its own lot with its own frontage and so forth. The parking for this new facility is shown adjacent to that building, and the folks that will be visiting there will use that parking area. Employees would be able perhaps to float between the parking lots, but memory care has grown in understanding how those folks need to be treated in the facility so much that it really makes more sense to have their own space in these buildings. There are certain protections that they need to have, locking mechanisms that are worked out with fire marshals and so forth about delayed egress and all those sorts of things. There's a courtyard that gives them an outdoor area that's safe, but it has plantings that are edible in case someone decides to taste one. But there's just a beautiful environment. The colors, the sounds, all designed to care specifically for the folks that need that. And it's really hard to fit out the old style building to perform all of that function. So that is the reason for the project. And because of the nature of those that are the residents, they don't need parking spaces. They don't drive. The visitors, unfortunately, are minimal. But we have code required parking up there. I think a few more actually. And I do have the calculations for the whole campus. We're over for both. If we need to say those numbers, I can. I think I'll stop there, and if there's any specific questions, I can answer those. You can see I've got a folder full of materials, and you all got many of those same materials in your packages. But I'm happy to start now just answering any specific questions.
Thank you. I'm going to actually call on Nathan, because Nathan did provide us with a memo, and he had some suggestions for improvements to the plan, correct, Nathan?
Yeah, did you just want to run through?
If you could just summarize, and the applicant has a copy of your memo, correct?
I will. Oh, cool.
I've got it right here.
Excellent. Yeah, but Nathan, the public, if you can summarize it for the public.
Great, yeah. So we got we received your plan sheets, and we also received your traffic study. We haven't received much information about utilities, so kind of just concentrated the review on parking and traffic.
Okay.
So a couple of general comments on the plan sheets. Suggest adding setbacks and dimensions on the site plans so we can reference that more easily. We didn't see any truck turning plans for the fire department to date.
We've got those, we just didn't include them in the plan set.
Yep.
We use vehicle tracking inside of AutoCAD, Civil 3D, so we've got that. We'll add them to future sheets.
Perfect. And then we thought it might be a good idea to have a truck turning plan for the trash truck as well to maneuver
We've
to
got
the
it.
concrete pad. And then if you could show more dimensions like the driveway dimensions and also dimensions for the parking spaces.
Of course.
Things like that. And then as far as ADA is concerned, we have the ADA spots. Just wasn't sure where the ADA entrances and curb cuts were, things like that. So show those on the plans. That way we know that the ADA spots are closest to the ADA.
This is a flush walk, actually, and the accessible route will come in. We have an entire sheet that's just the accessible sheet that shows all of that. We will have that, yes.
Great. And then, we just noticed that the new driveway takes away, maybe, is that a spot for buses, the southernmost entrance?
It is.
Is that going to be replaced somewhere, or do you not need that?
They park it. I don't know if it was meant for that, but that is. There's another one that parks right here. Actually, after getting your comment, we added 2 spaces right here beside the reconnection of this drive. So we've got a new plan that puts them both in a spot.
Great. Okay, yeah, we were just curious about that. And then things like labeling the proposed signs, and then details about the pavement markings, crosswalks, and whatnot. Should be provided at a next session.
We'll have it. No objection at all to that.
And then the traffic study looked good. We just had 3 little comments. The seasonal adjustment factor we didn't check because it wasn't included in the appendix. Usually we just have that attached. And there was one future condition that was less than the existing condition on the traffic plan. It was only one, but we just kind of notified it if you had any clarification as to why that happened. I wasn't sure.
I don't have that detail right now. If there's anything that I could imagine, it's that a tiny piece of the traffic would split, and there would be just a few more trips. You noted in there that the peak traffic in the morning and in the afternoon were 7 and 9 trips respectively. So this is not a big traffic generator. 75 total trips per day with all of staff and visitors and the rest. So there may be a few trips that return out to Shannon and back around instead of making the loop around the front of the facility. That's my best guess. I haven't talked back with the traffic consultant though to find out.
Yeah, we certainly don't think it would affect the conclusions of the study.
Right.
Just noticed it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the last note you just answered about the parking, just to show it on the plans, is to, that it meets the town ordinances.
We've got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. And I should mention to the rest of the board and the audience that there will be an ad hoc technical review committee meeting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. here in this room. And of course, that's open to the public under our Public Meeting Act. And that is basically to get input from DPW director, the fire marshal, the police, the zoning official, the building official, the local water authority, which I believe is Stonebridge Water. So I just wanted to mention that. And then I'd like to call on Ashley. Ashley, did you have any comments? You did note in your memo, as the applicant has noted just tonight, that the 4 lots will need to be merged together, the smaller lots, into a single. But you can do that yourself without bringing it back to the planning board as an
Correct.
administrative subdivision.
Correct, but it sounds like your intent is to keep this building separate from the main building, and so you'd have 2 lots. So you'd be combining or reconfiguring lot lines to reduce from 4 lots to 2 lots.
Correct.
That's not a problem, is it, Ashley?
It wouldn't have any entrance.
There might be some dimensional issues.
Yeah. Can you anticipate?
Pull out on the screen so we can
I've
see.
got it right here. Sure.
So there is a cul-de-sac that provides access on that side. My only question in reconfiguring this is that you're gonna cut across access or parking or something somewhere because it's all connected. To draw that lot line for that building, I don't know what you're thinking that lot line would look like, but there's gonna have to be.
This is
Kind of like land.
This is an approximate version.
Okay, and is that lot gonna be in the same ownership as the other lot? Or is that owned by a different entity?
No, same owner.
Same owner?
At this
Still gonna
time.
require easements.
You're gonna have to, it's gonna need access, you're gonna have to give access easements back and forth between the 2 lots.
I want to say we're only doing this because our understanding was there could only be 1 building per lot, according to your ordinance. I don't think we have any kind of preference for 2 lots.
So I know that's the case for residential,
We would be happy to just consolidate it.
but I'm not, we can look at that and talk to the
Okay.
zoning official and how he classifies this. I know for residential, for sure, you can only have 1 residence on a lot. But I believe you can have multiple commercial buildings on a lot.
We have actually granted waivers, and not just for comprehensive permit projects, but we granted a waiver for the Bayview condominium project years ago, before I was even on the board. So I don't know legally if we can grant a waiver for.
Different
This
animal.
is pre-existing non-conforming. This is still in a residential zone. And I was down there today, and that was one of my questions. You're only going to use the existing one entrance on Shannon, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think it's something that we can look at and have a conversation with the zoning official about how he would consider that.
I don't, do you have any objections
No, I
to
mean-
cross easements if that's the direction that we go?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with
Accessory
that.
building.
I mean, it would be preferred all to be a single lot.
Right.
Because typically, when we've done this kind of project at multiple
Right.
communities around the country where we'll build that purpose-built memory care on the property.
I don't know
Right.
what ordinance says.
And it's
So
usually.
the whole campus should be on a single lot.
Makes it easier.
Do you agree that this new building is an accessory to the existing building?
What does that mean, really? I mean,
So like, a residential home has its home, and then a shed would be an accessory structure. It
Well,
sounds
I
to
mean,
me as though your
it's
existing
already-
building
yeah.
is what?
Your primary
Well, the
use.
existing building is independent living, assisted living, and there's a small section of memory care in it. It's too small, and it doesn't have any of the programming
In the
that
basement.
they'll expect. So yes, we want to convert the current memory care, 18-unit memory care, back to IL, and this would be the campus's memory care. And I forgot to say, it also has skilled nursing. This is what we call CCRC, continuing care.
But the point is, the new building is smaller than the existing primary
It's
use,
subordinate to-
and it supports the functions of the primary building.
I think so. It's as a CCRC, it would do that.
Okay.
To have all the levels of care.
I think that's
at
how-
single property.
I think that's the analysis, primary and accessory use
Keep it as
on a
one.
single lot.
And keep it as one lot.
Yeah,
Makes it
that's
cleaner.
excellent. No, same BU number. Skill is already separate BU, I think.
So Ashley, are you,
I'm good.
you're good? Good.
That,
So, Rosemary, you've got the floor.
no, it answered a question that I had on the site plan. It was a proposed lot line.
Yeah.
I was wondering, that would eliminate that question. Is Mr. Rogers going to be at tomorrow at the TRC, the ad hoc?
He's standing
Oh,
back.
Okay. I'm sure he'll have some questions, too. Okay.
So, while people are thinking of questions, there have been some issues raised by neighbors concerning wastewater that appears to be coming off the Secundit Bay Manor property. And are you aware of this, and do you have any comments on it?
I have the letters here, sir.
Right.
And we've taken an initial look based on what we understand. Are those folks present to speak? It might be helpful to hear.
I would be more than happy to have them speak. Maybe we should do that right now. Is that agreeable to everybody? So I will be happy to take comments or questions from any member of the audience. And again, I think we want to restrict this. At this particular point, I'd like to kind of restrict it to the wastewater issue. We've all, I think, seen correspondence, emails, and memos in the last couple of days. So is there a chief spokesman for the issue who would like to come forward? Everybody's being very reticent. Yes, I see a hand here. If you could please stand up, come to the podium, speak in the mic, and start by telling us your name and your address.
Sure. It's George Bradbury. I live on 125 Shannon Avenue, which is that corner lot.
Hold on, George. What was the address, sir?
125 Shannon Ave. So it's the corner lot on the corner of Oakland and Shannon.
Okay, thank you.
Right across the street from where the proposed facility is going to be built. So I can represent the neighbor who probably deals with the problem the most, who lives right across the street from me on Oakland Street. I'm not sure the address there. Palladino, oh, okay. You want to? Okay. So at different times of the year, and definitely in the wintertime, it's a big problem because the water rolls off the lot and then freezes on the road in front of Pat's house. It doesn't affect me, but it does affect Pat and the houses down below. So I think the preference would be for some type of containment of all that water runoff. There's actually been a pipe put in not too long ago, I guess, to consolidate that water, and it just flows right out of the pipe and right down the street there. So that's one of the concerns. Is that the only concern we can bring up, or because I know there was a letter submitted by Bill Smith, which I have a copy of here, who's my neighbor right next door. He's in the United Nations right now.
You can speak to that as well. Yes, please do.
Okay, great. So, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he starts off by talking, and we collaborated. We came here. We met with Nathan before. We feel that the couple of primary issues that we see is, one, is that worried about the parking lot right where it's going to be located. I mean, again, the residential neighborhood, my parents built the lot that I'm living in right now on 125 Shannon Ave in 1964. At that time, it used to be the Coachman Restaurant. There was a vegetable garden across the street where this is proposed to be built. We're worried about light pollution more than anything else, because there's going to be street lighting that's going to have to go around that parking lot. We already get a lot of light pollution from the main facility that's already there. So that's one of the concerns. We're also concerned about traffic. To us, I don't know why they have to come down Shannon Ave to come into the facility, why they couldn't just come in through your existing parking lot in that little access road that I see, that loop there. I don't know why they just couldn't come through there and not come down Shannon Ave. Very light traffic on Shannon Ave. Not a lot of neighbors live in that corner of the neighborhood. So, it's not like you've got, it's a small residential neighborhood. It's always been that way. So that's one of the concerns that we had, is more traffic on Shannon Ave. A lot of kids play out there. The Smiths next door, they have 5 children that play out in the street. In fact, Bill talks about how his kids have always been able to play across the street in the grass. Brookdale's been a great neighbor in that way. I know that the residents look out the windows and watch the kids play ball or frisbee or whatever out there. And then a couple other things is there's a lot of wildlife that lives in there. I know it's Brookdale's property and they have the right to develop it, but that was just another concern that Bill had. The other thing that we noticed was on the plot plan there's going to be a retaining pond. So is that going to be above ground and exposed? I'm assuming it's for the runoff from the parking lot? Is that what?
It is, and it's partially the answer to concern number one, where we're sending the stormwater. All of the infrastructure that is part of the pipe coming out right here at the top of the road is going to be part of what's collected in the area drains around the building and sent through these bioretention ponds that are very shallow. This one is a detention pond and it's a few feet deep, but the other bioretention ponds are just a couple of feet deep, and Ryndham has a requirement that we overcompensate for nitrogen removal in our stormwater, 2.5 to 1, to take care of the part of the site that hasn't been treated already for that. So we're kind of catching up.
Well, I mean, you could imagine, because I'm sure if you were living across the street, that you wouldn't want to have those retention ponds there. There's going to be a mosquito problem right away, unless you plan on doing mosquito abatement as part of your plan.
These ponds are not designed to remain wet. In fact, there are drawdown requirements for these, that they have to get rid of the water in a certain amount of time.
So where do they drain to?
Into under drains or outfall structures. They're in the bioretention. There's perforated pipe that runs under amended soil, and there's plantings, and these are a lot better looking than the typical detention pond that folks might picture. This one is more like that conventional pond because we also have to have storage, but it has an outlet structure that will drain it. We're slowing the release so that we're not releasing more than the existing runoff on the outfall, which is in the northwest corner here, and it connects to the public storm sewer. Ultimately, there's an 18-inch storm pipe that all of this will tie into that at equal or less than the existing peak flow coming off of our site.
So you're going to tie it into the sewer then?
The storm sewer that's on the property, yes.
Okay.
So it's not going to just run off onto the road.
Do you have detailed plans of those retaining ponds and with the capacity, depth, et cetera? I mean, I see there's gradient all around it.
Right.
But what is do you have plans for those?
This is
Engineered plans? Or?
This is what we have so far. We do have modeling in software that we've done to make sure this meets the requirements. But later, there's requirements about profiles and different things that will show more detail about the depth of the pond and how much of it is actually storing. It looks like it's a lot deeper. For instance, on this one, this is just a 2-foot deep pond, but it's such a higher elevation over here. There's just a 6 or 7 foot slope coming down into the top side, but it's just a 2-foot deep pond because it's one of the bioretention ponds. But yes, we will have more details as we submit for the preliminary review. That'll be required, and we'll have all the calculations, cross-sections, profiles, all those things.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'd prefer that it's not built at all. I know that you know, if it's a legal structure and you can get the zoning and everything else squared away, you're going to go ahead with it. But I would say that in order to help the neighbors, deal with this, at the very least, assuming that we can't stop the project altogether, we'd like some type of natural boundary, like an arborvitae, something that's evergreen, to just block the view, especially from the lights, that would go all across the front there. I know you're going to have an access for that little cul-de-sac, but it would be nice if you included that in your plans.
We will be considering everything that the neighbors are concerned about. We're just at the very beginning of our master plan consideration,
Sure.
which kind of looks at the broad view. But the next stage is called preliminary plan, and that's when we get into the technical details. That's when we do the heavy-duty engineering, and we look at things like lighting and signage and landscaping and traffic patterns, and we will be working with the applicant at that stage to make sure that all of your concerns are addressed, hopefully to your satisfaction. I know that, for example, lighting, this issue comes up time and time again, but there are ways to comply with dark sky lighting standards that the applicants can live with and are happy to live with, and that the neighbors are very satisfied with as well. And we've dealt with that before. Certainly landscaping and even traffic on Shannon, I think we can look into that and see if we can move some of those traffic patterns in a way that benefits the neighborhood without putting in a burden on some other street or system. So yes, we will certainly be doing that, and it would certainly be helpful to the board if you could put some of these concerns into writing so that we can all see them and we're all on the same page.
You should
And
have a
then-
copy of this.
We
Yeah.
do, Ed, you did get that out to everybody.
From Bill Smith, he and I talked to you.
I'm hearing no, that we don't, I don't remember seeing anything.
I don't have that letter.
Have it either.
I only have 2 communications, and they're both on stormwater.
He sent it to landuse@tiverton.ri.gov.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, I'll have him resend it.
He sent it today at 4:40, so
Okay,
I was I was out, so sorry about that. but-
that's all right. Okay, that's all I had. Yeah.
I think a lot of, the development of the project solves a lot of the problems that you've been dealing with, right?
The stormwater runoff that runs across the road, which was one of the concerns that we
Right.
got an email about.
Right.
That one is going away. We're removing all of that system, capturing it in our system,
Good.
and attenuating that flow so that we're holding back, not releasing any more than what's currently running off
Right.
the northwest corner
Right,
up there.
right. And we'll, of course, have our consulting engineer look over your shoulder on that so that everybody is very clear about what you're doing. So this is a work in progress, and so stay tuned on some of these technical details. I may have cut off some of my colleagues on the planning board who had questions or comments. Yes, Christine.
Just wondering how many beds you're putting
It's going to be 30 beds.
That was 30 beds.
From 18 to 30.
That's correct, yes.
So the 18 are moving from inside the building over, or approximately,
Yeah.
but I assume that the space inside the building will be fulfilled with,
It'll be converted back to independent living. So what, I believe 1997, when it was originally built, and then in 2008, we found the plans today, digging for 2 hours, for the renovation plans, the lower level on that south side of the building converted to memory care.
Right.
And Bubba did a great job describing the plan. The memory care we have it's just not up to our standard at all. It doesn't have really any of the
Sure.
programming space. It's
Sure.
It's safe, it's secure, but it's not, what we expect for our memory care.
Right. And I just had one last question about the architecture of the new building. Will the architecture blend in with the architecture of the existing? That was my impression, but I just wanted to get it on record that this is an important issue to some of us.
Yes. Intended to blend seamlessly.
Right.
with the existing.
It's an attractive facility now, and we'd like to keep it that way. And we're also going to be very interested in the landscaping to make it very pleasant. It is very pleasant right now, but to maintain those standards would be wonderful. So, does any other member of the planning
just
board
have-
have a question or comment?
I do have a quick question. So, from looking at the map, it shows that the new building would be kind of pushed back a little farther, and it looks like you'd have to take out some trees and clearings, and is there a way now that if, say, by chance it was made into one lot, that building would be able to be closer, maybe coming away from all of that destruction?
Well, I think Bubba would answer this question better. The retention ponds and the filtration ponds and all that kind of help push it. I think we tried to keep it off of that south lot line as much as we could. And I'm real guilty sometimes of speaking when I'm not supposed to. He is the expert.
You can see, it's pretty much building at the tightest point. We have the parking and some ponds here to deal with stormwater, and then the drive. And We were really trying to keep as much of the work on this side of that drive as we could. There is another pond over here that's, like I said, 2 foot deep bioretention pond. It'll have plantings in it, amended soil. It looks a lot different than a normal detention pond. But you know, they keep their facility. This is not like a detention pond at a box store that gets forgotten after it's built. It doesn't get mowed. It's not cleaned out. It has a lot of trash. Brookdale does not keep their facilities that way. So this will remain a good-looking back lot, as good-looking as it can with bioretention. I understand that it's more difficult to throw football with these.
But not impossible.
I can't fix that. You can throw it across it. I can't fix that, though.
You know, I think some of the growth or not landscaping stuff you're seeing in that southwest corner, it's just overgrowth stuff. It looked to us that the really nice trees were on the property lines, and everything else that you see growing up that's 10, 15 feet tall, it's just stuff. Where when we build the building, it'll have proper landscaping.
Maybe we can replace some of the trees we take down and put some new ones.
I don't really think there's much of trees in all that stuff.
It
that we
seemed
can
like
tell. We'll be
brush.
back seeing it tomorrow though
Yeah.
in daylight.
Okay.
Will you lose some of your views from the main building by not putting it a little further south? The new building a little to the south? Because you are,
Well, one thing that we tried to position the front door of this new building. We actually once had it rotated 90 degrees, but we rotated it clockwise 90, repositioned it because at the end of the building, the existing building, there's an exit. So, you know, we were thinking, hey, that's a great pathway for Mr. Jones to come visit his wife that had to move to memory care. So we actually kind of tried to make that as short as distance as possible, because that's going to happen. I mean, it's what happens.
I know you'll have road noise from the highway here, but
Yeah, that interstate ramp is right there.
it's down below.
Yeah.
So,
Trees would be a good buffer for that. Trees are a good buffer for noise like that.
Well, and I mean, there's some pretty good sized trees along those property lines right now. Like I say, we spent until after dark digging through plants today. And then when we finally finished, we looked, oh shoot, it got dark on us, but we'll be back tomorrow.
It got dark at 4 o'clock today.
Yeah, yeah.
but just to follow up on Amanda's comment, I completely agree that we want to make this as much of a campus-like setting, very attractive, with lots of natural features, and to minimize the asphalt and the parking as much as possible. I know we have to have a certain amount to meet standards, but I wouldn't advise going beyond that minimum amount. But again, this is something we'll be looking at in great detail when we get to the preliminary plan stage of our deliberations. Are there any other members of the audience who would like to make a comment or raise a question? Again, you're all invited back when we believe that, I can't guarantee this, but we believe that the applicant will be back on January 10, and then we'll probably be getting into more specific details, and we'll have more information, and you're all invited back at that point. I see one hand in the audience. Yes, if you could come up and speak into the mic, and please, very clearly and very slowly, give us your name and your address.
Yep. Pat Palladino. I live in 3 Oakland Street, right where that bend is. Yeah, right there.
Yes, I recognize the name from your email.
Yeah, and most of what I'm hearing with the water is good. That sounds good to me. So, I'm a little concerned. It's taken so long to get this fixed because obviously, George hears me complain about it all the time, but because there's a drain all the way at the bottom of the street, it's every house on that left side, and we've complained, not directly to you, obviously, but to DPW, and it's kind of been a big runaround for years. And we're talking, it's a lot of water. It's like 2 or 3 inches of ice that covers the entire
Yeah.
road. It's done a lot of damage to people's driveways, and you can't even drive down the street from probably January to March. So anyway, I'm glad you guys are fixing it now. But I just want to clarify like 2 things. So with these retention ponds, nothing's going to get discharged down that street anymore?
All of the stormwater that's
gonna get-
within the disturbed area here
Yeah.
will go through the ponds northward here.
Yeah.
So is there a segment of undisturbed frontage on the road that still sheet flows onto the road? It looks like the contours here
Yeah.
actually flow this way. So I don't know, that's your,
Yeah, it's my
that's you right there.
So it's more in that corner there, but I mean, if you go out there, you see it. About 4 feet from that street corner is a big pipe that just discharges down the street. I mean, it's not. It was hidden for the longest time.
I believe this is it,
Okay.
shown partially by the survey that we have.
Yeah.
6-inch PVC pipe.
Yeah.
And our best guess of what that is a interceptor drain for the now out of service septic field that was in the back. No, it's not
It's
that
not
bad.
that. Yeah, because it doesn't smell that bad, but it doesn't smell that good either. But-
Well, it shouldn't have any.
Okay.
The septic field in this area has not been active for over 20 years.
Okay.
So when the big building was added on to, that was taken out of service. We have the plans for that. And we believe that this pipe was wrapped around the upstream side underground to catch groundwater so that it didn't inundate the leach field of the septic field. And we think it was just left in place, and so it's draining the ground right there. That's the only source we believe
Yeah.
it's connected to. It's just groundwater.
That would make sense because it doesn't really start going till like January when things start to freeze up, and then it starts to go. But then when it goes for 2-3 weeks at a time, and then, like I said, then it just stops.
But you said a big pipe, and
It's-
Bubba's saying 6 inch.
It looks bigger than 6 inches. I mean,
Well,
We'll see.
I
is it
think
6 inches? Okay.
it's all
Yeah.
relative.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's.
I think
it's-
that's what it
we know,
is.
yeah, you guys have it. It looks like you're fine.
Pat, if you're available tomorrow, perhaps you can meet with them and show them on site what your concerns are.
Yeah,
That might-
I can't, I mean, it looks like you guys got it, so I mean, I'm happy for that. The only other concern that I have is, so I have 3 little boys, they're 8, 5, and 2, and George had pointed this out to me before with these retention ponds, but it didn't really click with me. Are there any kind of fencing? I know you said they don't hold water, but like, I know my kids are gonna climb into these things, like, there's like a 99% chance they're gonna go into these things, so I'm just, just curious, like, what would you
They're
do?
not intended to be fenced. I mean,
Okay.
they're gonna just look more like depressions in the lot.
Okay, with, like, rocks and
they'll-
things.
They'll drain out.
Okay.
Bubba says they have to drain so fast because they're not allowed to hold water.
More than a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they will for a time, because that's the only way
Yeah.
that we can
No, I
slow
get
that
that.
water down.
Right.
So that we're not flooding downstream when we
Yeah.
release. So for a couple of days, it's going to have water while it's raining, and that fills up.
Yeah.
It will be draining down in the detention pond. The infiltration in the bioretention will be much quicker than that.
Okay, all right, that's great. Okay, yeah,
Okay, thank you, Pat.
I mean, could you, if it's still a problem with runoff in front of the corner there, I mean, couldn't you put a berm up and capture that in a drain that it feeds into your retention pond?
I think it's gonna, where you're getting water that's somehow getting in that pipe's gonna you won't even have that ability anymore when this new building's built.
I mean, that and all of the disturbed area on here are going into our system. The only potential bypass is a sliver of undisturbed that's adjacent. I'm just not going to tell you that every single drop of water adjacent to that
that's
road
fine.
is coming
No.
back our way.
Yeah.
We would have to do something like a, redirect with a berm or something like that
Yeah.
to get that leftover spot. But, we try to be as precise as possible and not just take everything. So we're leaving what we can. But all this, I think, is meant to come out in preliminary, more detailed.
Yeah, no, it seems like
We're
a good
happy
plan
to-
for that.
Yeah, we'll come back.
We're happy to look at it.
Okay, yeah, so that's really my only other concern was about how much we're gonna clear out of the lot, like, but we can talk about that later. I mean, I don't want to take up time, because it's just pretty woodsy now, and I'm just curious, like, with like landscaping and stuff, like, are you gonna clear everything from that lot? And, I don't know, just, George brought it up too, as far as
Well,
bushes.
yeah, that's on my agenda as well.
Okay,
so-
yeah, that's, yeah,
so-
sure. All right,
Don't worry,
thank you.
we'll revisit that. Now, Ashley had a comment or a question.
Yep, so very much related to the point that was just brought up. Lot 139 is primarily wooded. 138 is partially wooded, and then the southern portion adjacent to the existing building, there's some lawn, and then there's a wooded area. I think for the board and for the abutters, it would be helpful to understand what that consists of. You said a lot of that is like low-growing, kind of shrub stuff. It would be interesting to know what of that you plan to clear, which portion, like in your landscape plan, when you're presenting that, it would be helpful, I think, to understand on 139, 138, and that southern portion of the existing building lot, what's getting cleared out and what's remaining, and of what you're clearing, what does that consist of? Are we losing, shrubs and just scrub, or are we losing any trees, and how are we accounting for that? Because those are the parts of the lot that abut residences, and so I think those are the most important locations to understand what's there now, what it's going to look like going forward.
And one thing we might want to consider, Ashley, going forward is whether or not the board would like to do a site visit at some point, which we do from time to time, and that becomes an official meeting of the planning board, and the public is invited on that. But we might want to think about that and see what the interest level is on that, if you're not already familiar with Secaucus
I'd be
Bay Manor.
interested.
So, well, seeing no further questions or comments from the audience. Yes, and
Just to that, if you're going to do a site visit, I would recommend doing it soon, because you're going towards winter, it's going to get cold, it's going to snow. I would say if the board is interested in a site visit, it's probably better to do it sooner rather than later.
well, I think I'll ask Ed to poll the members of the planning board by email to see what the interest level is, and maybe suggest a couple of dates. When we do this, we typically do it at typically 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And we would probably want to do it sooner rather than later, simply because we want to move quickly on this as quickly as possible.
And just in consideration of the applicant, they come from Tennessee,
Right.
and they may want to attend a site walk, so maybe while they're here, if the board is interested, you could talk about a time frame where I don't know if you have plans to come back,
Those just depending on how we get our information to you and get back on the meetings and come back. I mean, the executive director for the community wanted to be here tonight. He came down sick with something, I don't know what, hopefully not COVID. And, but we could easily, if we notified him, he would be glad to get with you. And we've talked on the phone, Bubba, me, to him several times about the project.
Right, yeah, okay, thank you. Well, we do need to do one further thing, and that is to,
I think she had a question.
Oh, sorry,
That's
Tricia.
okay, Stu. And actually, it's not specifically about this plan, but I'm sure at this point you're fairly familiar with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management regulations on stormwater.
Yes.
And as far as the existing stormwater problem goes, I'm sure you know that you're responsible by law, to keep stormwater on your property or properly infiltrated, and that you can't, impede a public roadway. So I'm just wondering, assuming that, that eventually this is permitted, it's going to take some time to build, and winter is coming. So for the benefit of those residents, it might be a very good faith effort now to potentially speak with our DPW director to see if there wasn't at least some reasonable interim solution before winter comes, so that, those roads aren't freezing.
We'll see. Well, I think when we get out and actually get to see it, because the light will go off and we see a method for somehow helping right now.
In the daylight tomorrow, we can take a look at it.
Take a look at it. And, this is probably a better comment for preliminary plan, but the other thing that DEM, the state, is endorsed it for retention ponds, where it can work, is the idea of rain gardens or certain planting that helps to attenuate the stormwater, but is also aesthetically much more pleasing than sometimes the pile of boulders and junipers. So that's something that the state has embraced. Tiverton is trying to embrace low-impact development standards as well. So if that's something that potentially assists in the acceptability to the neighbors of the
Beautification.
stormwater retention,
Yes.
I think certainly the board would be happy to entertain those kinds of solutions.
Yes, absolutely, that would, I completely agree with that. And since there will be an ad hoc technical review committee meeting tomorrow, and you gentlemen will be attending it, and our DPW director, Rick Rogers, will, I think, also be attending it. I see Rick here. Rick is hiding back there someplace. Oh, there he is. I think that should probably, I will not be able to be at that TRC tomorrow, but I would urge you to follow up with Rick Rogers, our DPW director, to see if something can't be done in the immediate future to deal with freezing runoff this winter. So having said that, I would like to entertain a motion I will actually make a motion to continue this agenda item to our January 10, 2023 regular monthly meeting, about a month from now. So I have made that motion. Do I have a second? Second. I think Chris beat you, Rosemary. So I made a motion. Chris Schreiber has seconded that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing no discussion, all of those in favor, show of hands, unanimous. So we'll see you, some people will see you tomorrow, and I'll see you on January 10. So thank you so much. Very good presentation.
Thank you. I would like to bring up something that Ashley corrected on the agenda, which I concurred with, was the time clocks. And the first one, item number 2, I believe you said, Ashley, February 19th. What's item 2?
It's the 22nd.
Instead of
master
February
plan.
19th, instead of February 22nd, you said. I calculated the same thing, but the agenda is incorrect.
My calculation was February 19th.
Right, and that should be corrected. And also on the second one, you said January 25th, and I concur with that. The agenda says January 28th. Just a point. Thank you.
Whatever
Okay.
the date is, we will review what the certification of completeness date was and correct it, or leave it, whatever
I
it is.
did it, but
We'll look at the certification of completeness.
Okay.
Okay, could we have the lights, Ed? And thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So Rosemary wants to show you this.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay,
And now I'll do the math.
thank you.
Okay, so this brings
Point
us,
out my mistakes in public, Rosemary. It's fantastic.
this brings us to agenda item number
It's
4.
unnecessary is what it is.
For the
And
record.
and I would invite Neil and Goran to come to the table, and is there somebody?
I use my wheel as well.
Yes. Anybody else joining you, Neil?
Yes, we have a.
So this is, we're talking now about the Secana Partners LLC application. This is a crematory and a chapel at 730 Main Road. This is right across from Ford Farm Road and Walgreens, where that little barber shop used to be, that little wood frame barber shop that was torn down about a year ago used to be. It's plat number 118, lot 163, and it's in the neighborhood business zone. The neighborhood business is one of the 3 form-based code zones that encourages smart growth, walkability, and good design. And it's approximately a half an acre. It will be reviewed under development plan review, site and design. And I should mention that recently, November 17, there was an ad hoc technical review committee meeting held, and Neil did very good notes on that meeting. Thank you, Neil, for doing that.
Happy to help.
So having said that, I would like to invite Neil to make any comments you would like to make at this time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I'm Neil Hingarani. I'm a PLS from Narragansett Engineering. Also, I have with me Joe Malo, an engineer from my office.
Hi, Joe.
Behind me is Jonathan Ferreira, the owner. We also have Eric Corsi from Morton Builders, and I'm sure as many of you know, Attorney Jay Lynch as well.
So, no, I didn't know that you had an attorney. I think Jay Lynch has not been been here.
Been here a while.
In a while, okay.
Hopefully you won't hear much from me this evening.
I apologize. I'm going to ask for a bit of a shift in gear here, because we need to do with this application what we just did with the last application and make a decision on whether or not to have a formal, advertised, and notified public hearing, because this is an Article 20 Development Review, Site and Design application. And technically speaking, now, for those of you who go back a long way, you know that we didn't used to do this in the past. We used to always view this provision as sort of a default. But now it is being suggested that we actually take a formal vote on whether or not to have a formal hearing. And so we would need to do that with a motion and a formal vote. And I'm going to ask Ashley if she'll give us a little background on this. She did mention it in her memo. Both Ashley and Neil did memos on this particular application. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Nathan.
I'm sorry, Nathan. So Ashley, do you have a recommendation on whether or not we should have a formal notified? I do. I don't think we should have one I don't think
So
we
I
need one.
don't have a recommendation either way. I have, the development plan review ordinance leaves it to the determination of the planning board whether or not there is a public hearing for the application. The difference being if you hold the public hearing, there are notice requirements that go out to abutters and there's an ad in the newspaper. Not holding a public hearing doesn't preclude you from including the public. You can certainly allow any public to speak. It's at the discretion of the board, when it's not a public hearing, to still allow the public to make comments and speak on an application. But the way that it is worded in the development plan review, that section of the zoning ordinance, it makes it clear that it is at the determination of the planning board. So, our advice to the board is to actually make that determination whether or not you want to hold that public hearing for DPR applications.
So again, I would recommend that we not have a formal hearing. But as chair, I can promise you and all the members of the public who are interested in this particular application that I will give them every opportunity to ask questions, to make comments, to engage in a discussion with the applicant. I have the discretion as chair to do that, and I always like to do it in any case, but I promise you in this instance that I will certainly do it. If we have a formal hearing, then we have to advertise, and that's an expense, and we have to notify all of the abutters, and that's an expense. I don't think that this project has been controversial. I don't see a huge amount of interest from the neighbors who are aware of it. They don't need to be made aware of it with a formal letter, certified letter. It's been in the Secundit Times. There was an article in the Secundit Times a week or two ago on it. But again, it's up to the board, but I would recommend that we not proceed with it, but that we do proceed with listening to the applicant tonight and then engaging in a discussion with the applicant and allowing members of the public who are here tonight to make comments and ask questions and to fully engage in the process. That's my recommendation. So I'm making that motion. Do I have a second?
I'm going to second that.
Thank you, Chris.
Based on the rationale of what we just went through with the previous applicant and the reasonableness of this board to hear people at any given time throughout the process.
I would like to say that it is a hot issue, and I've heard lots of people talking about it. And I would recommend highly that it would be public.
It is public. The application is advertised. I mean, the agenda is posted, the public is aware, they're here, they're able to speak. It's not a non-public process.
Thanks, I
The difference
understand that.
is just the advertising portion of that.
Yeah. So I think it should be advertised, and I think the abutters should know.
I also think it should be advertised because not everyone gets the Secundit Times. Not everyone goes on social media. I think a letter to the abutters is very beneficial.
How do the rest of you feel? I know I'm putting you all on the spot here, and please don't feel that you're offending me if you disagree with me on this.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
And I just want to make sure you understand, Chris. This is only here for for development plan review. It will not be undergoing master plan, preliminary plan review, such as the Brookdale project, because it's not required.
Okay,
for
I
this.
do understand that, yes.
Okay.
For sure.
Right. But as long as it is under review, and as long as we are sitting here hearing the applicant, the public is invited, and the public is invited to make comments and engage in the discussion. So, did you have something to say, Tricia?
I do. I tend to think that in this particular case, given some of the concerns that are raised, and to Rosemary's point, people don't read the newspaper the way that they used to. Facebook News Network is a little sketchy at best. That I do think that advertising is, and particularly a notification to the abutters, is in this particular case a worthwhile activity. I don't generally always think that, but I do feel in this case it would be good. But my recommendation would be this, and certainly I know that there are people who want to speak. But if we're going to have a public hearing, then we have one public hearing. Sometimes the public hearing gets, the informal public hearing, as well as the formally advertised notice to a butter, gets a little bit spread out. And I think it's better for everyone in terms of getting information and understanding information, that if you're going to have an advertised public hearing with notification to the abutters, that you have one public hearing where everybody gets to speak.
So I think we haven't heard from Christine.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, part of our agenda after this is to talk about communication with the public, and I think we're circumventing that if we're not going by the law.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Thank you, Tricia.
Hold on, the law does permit you to have a hearing without advertisement. Okay.
Okay, so if that is the case, then I will withdraw my motion.
There's been a second. Vote on it, have it denied.
Okay, so let's have we have a motion on the table. We have a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing no further discussion. All of those in favor, please raise their hand. I guess I have to because there are two.
You don't have to.
And so the motion fails. Now, would somebody like to make a motion to have a formal, notified, advertised public hearing? And that would probably be at our January 10 meeting. Okay, so we have a motion, and do we have a second? Does somebody second that? So Tricia seconds that. Is there discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, all of those in favor? It carries. 4 in favor. So just a majority of the people present, it carries.
4? What was the vote? 4-2?
4-2, yes. So now I have a question of legal counsel. We have members here. I thought you all showed up for Secundit Bay Manor, but it turns out many of you are here for the crematorium. Since you're here, do I have discretion as the chair to hear from the public at this meeting?
I would be opposed to that. Because you're going to have an advertised public hearing on January 10th with a formal record created at that time.
Some of us won't be here.
Everyone's welcome to submit their comments in writing as well.
If I may be...
I haven't responded, no one's responded to me.
I haven't seen your comments. Who did you send them to?
I sent them to someone named Ed, because on the website says that there's somebody else that's on the planning board. So I sent that person one, and they said, oh, I haven't been on the planning board in 2 or 3 years. I said, well, then somebody needs to update the website.
We're going to be talking about that later tonight, and you're absolutely right. We need to clean up our website because
Kathy Calabrese.
Okay, I believe that's it.
If I may be so
Did you
bold,
send it to everybody? Okay, thank you.
I will not be here on January 10th either, but I would ask if there is some value in still proceeding with, at the very least, a discussion tonight.
I'm hoping that we can proceed with some kind of a discussion. I was hoping to bring the public into this because I'm not sure where the public is coming out. I haven't seen a single, I have not seen a single item from any member of the public, and I was assuring my colleagues just yesterday that this was not controversial. And
Comments that you accept tonight outside of the public hearing cannot be then considered in your final decision because they were not part of the public hearing record.
yeah, so this is not how I like to do business.
And
The
we can
legal
agree to continue.
minutia has taken over this process, unfortunately, but that's where we are. That's our system. Okay, so legal counsel says not to take questions or comments from the public tonight.
You can take them, but they cannot be considered in your decision. So it would be a waste of
It
time.
would be, yeah.
No, I don't see how not listening to people is never a waste of time.
Well,
couldn't
it would be
consider it.
more beneficial in January when we can actually take it more into
You
consideration.
can consider it.
Okay, if people put it in writing, if people speak tonight, but they can't be with us on January 10, but they put it in writing and submit it, then that can be taken into account for the public,
The writing can be taken into consideration, certainly.
into consideration for.
But I said that before.
Okay, I am going to ask Neil to give us an overview, and then I will open it up and get some feeling. Now, again, I'm not going to allow repetition, but I am very curious to see what your concerns are. So, Neil, why don't you go ahead and give us an overview?
Just a second. I'm going to remind the board that what you hear tonight is not going to be part of your deliberations when the matter is actually heard at the public hearing. So to the extent that your eventual decision relies on anything heard tonight, it will be an error, okay?
But you'll hear it again on January 10.
Not necessarily, though, either, if they're not.
May I ask a question?
It can be put in writing, yes.
May I ask a question that maybe is a little bit of middle ground? Since there are a lot of people who are here, and this is the sort of first presentation, so after the applicants present, before the public hearing, would it be acceptable for the members of the public to ask a question? Because they may be asking something that we're all interested in hearing or learning more about. And so would it be acceptable, not necessarily to accept the kind of comment and opinion that would have to be part of our decision, understanding that we wouldn't be able to do that, but could the members of the public ask a question?
After the presentation.
After the presentation, for clarification, they may be the same questions we're asking. And that's information, not necessarily...
Testimony.
Not testimony. And we'd ask the members of the audience to use this opportunity to ask their questions.
If you're going to ask those questions again at the actual public hearing, fine, to create the record. Or that evidence is subsequently submitted through the applicant somehow for the record. That's my problem.
I think that Tricia's suggestion is reasonable. So when we get to that point, I would ask members of the public not to present testimony, views, but rather to simply ask a question, raise issues. And then, and that will at least get us started on this process, because, I'm more concerned about doing what's right for the town of Tiverton. And that means listening to the people of Tiverton and listening to the applicant, and trying to come up with a win-win situation where everybody is satisfied with the outcome. I'm more concerned about doing that than about some of the legalities, although we do have to observe the legalities.
I'm very concerned about you having a defensible decision, whatever it is.
Right. But we have to
That's my
build,
only goal.
we're not building a record tonight. Absolutely not. We are building a record on January 10. So, yes, I think we'll proceed that way. So, Neil, why don't you give us a brief overview, and then we'll open it up.
Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Chairman, let me, Jay Lynch on behalf of the applicant. I understand the board's concern wanting to get as much information out to the public as available tonight, but this is just going to create a problem for the applicant going forward. Someone's going to challenge information that was received tonight to the board. I think it's prudent to protect the applicant and also the rights of any abutters who want to object to have this all at one public hearing. It doesn't make sense to proceed tonight and then do this all again in January or February.
Well, how do the rest of you feel about this?
I'm okay with January. I just want to make sure that we are doing things properly, legally. And I feel like we're still going to hear the public in January, and we still know that this is a hot issue, but we just need to make sure that we're doing it the proper way.
Thank you, Amanda. I think that's a very sensible comment. In fact, you have convinced me to change my mind. I will not then, yes. I will, sorry, folks, I will not be taking any questions or comments from the public tonight. I know that this is disappointing, and I know personally I don't think it's quite the way to go, but I would urge you to stay and listen to the applicant, though, because some of your comments and questions might be...
We're not even going to give a presentation tonight.
No? Okay.
I don't think it's productive to go in with the presentation.
Okay, this is not the way I like to do business. Not at all. I'm sorry, sir, I can't take your...
It's not related. I would just like to, we won't be here again in January. Will you have your website ready so we can ask a question to you during the month of January?
You have your email head on there?
Will we be able to email you in January?
I'll give you a card.
All right, thank you.
And also, I believe Mr. Hingarani is not going to be available at the December meeting, so probably if the board would consider this to be a February meeting,
So
let everybody know now.
We need to extend the time clock.
Okay.
The time clock expires January 26th.
Send to the extension.
To,
So, hold on, the February meeting is it's the first Tuesday, right?
yeah.
The 7th. So I would ask that you extend it to at least a week after that, which would be the 14th.
That's fine.
Because of weather.
Okay, so we need to do two things. We need to extend the time clock, and we also need to continue the agenda item. And we're going to do that to our meeting, which I believe is February 7th. February 7. So I will make a motion first. Well, let's do the time clock first. And so you have to ask us to extend the time clock. And I think Ashley said February
14th.
14th.
On behalf of the applicant, we're requesting that the time clock be extended to February 14th.
Okay, could you put that in writing?
I will.
think we like to.
I'll follow up
Okay.
with the letter.
And so now I need a motion to accept the extension of the time clock to February 14, 2019. and 23, and we have a motion from Chris. Do we have a second? We have a second from Tricia. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all of those in...
Rosemary.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rosemary, were you?
Oh, okay.
She's voting yes already. So that's unanimous. So we have now extended the time clock to February 14. So now I'm going to entertain a motion to continue this agenda item to our February 7 regular monthly meeting. And I'll make that motion. Chris seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
When's the public hearing?
So the public hearing will be February 7, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. That brings us to agenda item 5, Planning Board. And the first item under this agenda is recommendation to Town Council on renewal of license for Hometown Country View LLC, also doing business as Country View Estates, 213 Hurst Lane. Discussion and possible vote. I think Ashley has more information on this than I do because she actually went on a site visit with Mr. Hoyle. You know, actually, Nathan, you're excused, and our DPW director is also excused. You're going to have to come back tomorrow, so you can go home early tonight. Rick Rogers, you can leave.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Sure. Don't forget about tomorrow morning, though, Rick.
I'll be there.
So, Ashley, would you
Yes.
care to comment on agenda item 5A?
Sure, so I visited the site with the zoning official, we drove the property, we went into the common area, and we're basically given a tour of the inside of the area, the swimming pool area, all of the common rooms that are used by the residents, and did not see, there was no concerns between him and I in anything that we saw. The property appears to be well-maintained. The common facility appears to be well-maintained, and neither of us saw any issues that we're concerned with. So I don't have any information that would prevent you from supporting a renewal of their license.
So are we being asked to make a recommendation to town council?
I believe so, yeah.
So you saw nothing?
I did not witness anything that would
And
prevent their license from being renewed.
So Rosemary,
I have-
there has been some correspondence?
I have a piece of correspondence that was discussed at the town council meeting, town council meetings, and I came in and asked the clerk's office to provide me with a letter that apparently was from the homeowners association to the town council and to the town clerk and to the planning board. And I asked Ed when I came in, and he said he didn't have anything, and then I went in and got a copy of it and found out that it had been, and he said he gave it to the Ashley. But reading it, I don't know if you got it or not, but they wanted a meeting with planning and zoning officials, and it's really about their management group, Hometown, I think it is, Hometown America. And the town clerk said they had been working with them about the license, and but I am concerned because it was addressed to Ed and the Tiverton Planning Board, and we didn't get a copy of it. So I just bring it to your attention, but every year we do the Quarry and the Country View Estates, making an advisory recommendation to the town council about the licenses.
Let me see that letter.
And, but I think we have to
Is there a date on there?
get on.
Yeah, October 14th.
It was in the backup, apparently, of the council.
Well, the letter is addressed to Ed.
And the planning board.
I wasn't sure when I got the letter, I wasn't aware of Country View Estates. The clerk's office wasn't able to really help me with that. I asked them what to do with it.
As I said.
And I did give it to Ashley and John, they went over it. I wasn't too sure that, I didn't know it goes in front of the board for reappointment and things like that, so.
I beg to disagree, but we had talked about an annual licenses and what came on agendas and at the end of each year.
When I got that letter, I didn't know, that was before. I found out about that later.
Yeah. But, you know, Ed, just as a default...
I didn't know what it was, so I
Okay,
apologize.
but just as a default position, if you wonder whether the planning board should get it or not get it, always default to the position that we should get it. For example, no members of the planning board got any notification about the TRC tomorrow.
Okay.
Even the chair didn't get a notification.
Okay.
I found out from Rosemary. She looked it up on the Secretary of State's website.
I got notified by the Secretary of State's office because I
Right.
signed up for it.
So, but, you know, that, you need to, now, the board understands that if all of us show up, that's an illegal meeting of the planning board, so we understand that issue. But we should at least know what's going on, because the TRCs are part of our process. And so everybody, all of us should know that a TRC is taking place, even if they're not appointed as a member of the TRC.
So if we're going to do that, then I would ask that if you intend to come to the meeting, that you notify us, because we will potentially have a problem if more than a quorum shows up.
We understand, and I think that if anybody does want to show up, even in the audience, because that's what you would have to do if you're not appointed as a member, that you could potentially be creating a problem. So you need to check with Ashley to make
Just
sure
let
that...
us know that you intend to come.
That
so we
four
can-
other members aren't also going to show up.
Right.
But still, we have always been notified in the past, and I feel very strongly that we should at least know what's going on. I don't go to them if I can avoid it. I find the process very painful.
So, still like going through the process of learning.
But, yeah, so-
I am by myself, I'm not a planner, so.
You're not what?
I'm not a planner, so I'm an administrative officer, so it is difficult to.
And very good one, too.
So I do appreciate the feedback.
Absolutely, so that's fine, thank you. I don't know what to do about this, this agenda item 1, which is we're being asked to make our recommendation. If Rosemary, you know more about this than I do because you've been dealing with this a lot longer. Should we be making a recommendation to town council to,
It's part of the regs that,
that we should,
The regulations request that
that we make a recommendation?
notification.
And we have to make a positive or a negative recommendation. We have no reason to make a negative resignation.
there is correspondence that from the, I don't know if it's like an association of members or whatever, and they make they make note of, things being in disrepair, and I can tell you, I don't live there. I wouldn't necessarily pick up on things that you would only notice as a resident or long-term. But everything appeared, and they didn't know we were coming, so it's not like they prepared themselves and cleaned stuff up before we got there. We showed up unannounced. And neither him or I saw anything that would rise to the level of a code violation. They had just had their fire exits and alarms tested. We didn't see anything that would, raise concern. And I don't know if the accusations they're making, becomes a civil issue between them and the management company. If they're unhappy because the pool isn't cleaned, on a good enough basis, that certainly isn't, doesn't rise to the level of you providing a negative recommendation on their license. That's a
So,
a civil
Tricia?
issue between them.
But is that what the letter said? Where does the letter say?
It was general, maintenance issues. I think they were raising concerns.
Correct. I mean, as far as the letter went, and you're welcome to look at it. And in the past, as I mentioned to the town clerk, they have held up licenses for maybe 3 months or something till they get their act together. But it was really not maintenance that I recall. It was more of age restrictions, things like that. I mean, where we had a lot of them at the beginning up there. And
Tricia.
different ownerships, too.
Tricia's been trying to talk.
Sorry.
So there's a long history here, and there are some disagreements between the owners and the management company that go way back.
Way back.
Way back. And some of those things, as much as the town would like to help the owners, are not within the town's purview. However, they have occasionally mentioned things that are within the town's purview, such as stormwater issues and building code issues. Things where, and not necessarily in the common areas, but some people who don't have steps from their doors or don't have steps that meet code. And I know the council heard about this not very long ago. So I don't know if the council offered to, this time, look into it, help. In other words, we could offer a sort of neutral recommendation if that would be what would be more useful for the council. In other words, that a site visit of the common areas seemed to show no issues. However, because maybe there are, I don't know, but I thought the homeowners were going to meet with somebody. Deb's nodding yes. Did you, am I crazy here? Wasn't there going to be some meeting?
So the concerns were mostly upkeep of the buildings, the common buildings, the grass mowing. They're concerned because the winter's coming and the street plowing and the sanding and salting. They came to us, they wanted us to hold their license, and we couldn't do that. So I believe that they've had some turnover in some of their people too, the homeowners association, and they sent that letter to the planning committee. I think they sent it to us first, for us to go out and inspect it, and it really wasn't in the council's reign to do that, so I think that we did turn it to planning to have the inspector go out, and went out with you, Ashley, to go look at the buildings to see about the upkeep of them. I do believe we approved it, right, with the condition that planning approved their site.
Didn't we direct
And we directed the building inspector to go look.
And he did, obviously, then.
I don't know if he went out independently other than the time that we went.
And I believe that everything we've looked at in the past, there really were no violations. But they claim that they've had a number of different, the management company has different people on site, and that changes rapidly. And so they go between periods where there's nobody, and they're asking for these things to be fixed, and it's taking a long time, or it's not getting fixed. And they're just frustrated, and they were looking for some way to hold the management company accountable. It just wasn't in our abilities to do that.
It has changed ownerships since the inception
Correct.
of it. And the license has been held in the past for a few months until they got their acts together. But, and there was even, I think, some suggestions of making it, as Ashley said, a civil suit with the residents against whoever the owner was at the time. So, I mean, I think the town has abided by their rules.
They loved the original owners, and now, there's change.
Well, about 3 times, I think.
And
So Deb, did the town council actually extend the license? Did they take action on the license?
we did. Did we do it for a whole, did we do it for 12 months?
I thought we did.
I think so. I think for meeting requirements.
Meeting all rules.
That's what I had heard. So
Contingent on.
what we're doing
Contingent.
tonight is irrelevant. They've already taken action.
But it was contingent on what you say tonight. We really didn't want to hold that license and not approve it because people live there.
Okay, so.
Right, it wasn't taken.
So they still want to hear, so town council still wants to hear. Well, I'd like Tricia's suggestion. Tricia, would you like to turn that into a motion?
Well, I'm not, now that I have all the background, and now that I'm hearing from Ashley that she and the building official went out and inspected the common areas and didn't necessarily, so I'm happy to make a motion that says, based on report from the town planner and the building official, after their inspection, finding no, how would you put it, no deficiencies in the inspection of the common areas, that, we can recommend.
We recommend a renewal of the license. We won't specify a time period, we'll just say, recommend a renewal of the license.
Correct.
Okay, I second that motion. Okay, do I hear any comment? We have a motion and a second.
I'm just curious.
Oh, go ahead, Christine.
What happens if we deny it? Like, are people homeless? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that?
We're just an advisory opinion, really.
We have no grounds to deny it
We didn't
at
either.
this point.
Right.
And it appeared, well, at first, I offered to them more than once that I would go down there anytime and get dragged around and shown all these things, and nobody bit. The second thing I did was I looked at the zoning ordinance and a few other things, and at least to me, it's pretty clear they have a homeowners association, and they're responsible for the mechanics and operation of that park. And it sounded like they're responsible for the ownership of the common buildings. I could be wrong on that, but it doesn't seem to be in your hands or our hands to deal with the owner. Am I sort of right?
You would be correct. If there's a homeowners association, there's going to be a declaration and bylaws stating what they're required to do.
And they were complaining about different fee schedules for different people, and
Has nothing to do
That's
with
not
that.
what that, right.
I'm not even going to go there.
Right.
This has been a long-standing thing, and I feel sorry for some of the residents because I don't think it's always easy with all the change of ownership, and I don't think that the new owners are kept to how it was originally marketed. And they don't own, the management company owns the land, I think.
Correct.
Leased land.
It's leased.
But they own their, they own their units that they live in.
I came here with an empty hearing aid box with new batteries.
They own the property. And I think the management company owns the common area.
So Rick Rogers' predecessors have had some issues. Rick, did you have anything to say about Country View? Did you want to say anything?
There's no DPW involved issues at this point.
Okay, good.
But we have a
Okay.
motion in a second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay, that brings us to the second one, which is a recommendation to council on renewal of a license for Helger Brothers Sand and Gravel LLC. This used to be called the Coelho Quarry, and it's at 1764 Crandall Road. And it's always had a license. It always gets a license every year.
I think so.
We always do an inspection, but they actually aren't quarrying anything. So I see Deb has.
Yeah, we're trying to remember what we did with that. We believe we did the same thing.
I think, yeah. And the quarry is a prohibited use in the town, and that's the only active quarry license.
So it's the only licensed quarry.
The only licensed quarry, correct.
active one.
So you didn't do
Official.
anything here, did you?
For this one, I did not. I was going to try to go today. I did not make it. I can go tomorrow, and you can condition your advice on me, not finding any
Supposed to rain
issues.
tomorrow.
Quite honestly, I'm not sure what I'm looking for at a quarry, but I'll go out there.
Well, if you look in the file, you'll see pictures of it, and I'd be glad to chauffeur you down there. You find it.
You're going to get wet if you go tomorrow.
They're not actively.
Rick,
DPW is aware of no issues at that point.
That's good enough for me. I would entertain a motion to go ahead and recommend a 1-year, recommend a renewal of their license.
I'll second that.
So we have, no.
Motion by who?
Just-
Trish or
You've got enough to do tomorrow. It was actually Tricia and Chris.
So-
No, yes,
So
Tricia.
real quick, so not to move stuff from one desk to another, how does the planning board get involved in these decisions? Where is that?
In the regs.
It's written in
It's
this.
in the
ordinance.
regulations. We have no choice.
It's an interesting.
I'm not sure we should, but, okay, so we have
Interesting.
we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion on Coelho Quarry? Hearing no discussion, all of those in favor? I believe it's unanimous. Okay, that brings us to item number C, which is appointment of an ad hoc TRC. This is for the Sousa Road condominiums. This is the mixed-use project at the corner of Sousa and Main that would also involve low and moderate income housing, and therefore it's a comprehensive permit project as well as a major land development. And so we have had a presentation. We had a pre-application presentation a year ago. Then we had a presentation fairly recently by Bill Landry, as you recall. And now we're appointing an ad hoc TRC at Bill Landry's request. And so I'm going to suggest that, and Ashley, tell me if I'm right here, I would suggest I will make a motion to appoint an ad hoc TRC consisting of the building official and/or the zoning official. They can decide if they both want to come or just one or the other. The fire marshal and/or the fire chief. They can decide if they both want to come or one or the other. The police chief, the DPW director, our consulting engineer, and the North Tiverton Fire District, which provides water to that site. So, Ashley, did I mention everybody, or would you like additional people? And we need a volunteer from the planning board. I see Christine has volunteered to serve on this ad hoc TRC. Is there any other member of the planning board who would like to serve as a member? No? Oh, Rosemary does. So Rosemary and Christine will be the two ad hoc TRC members. So that's my motion. Would you like any amendments to that motion, Ashley?
Nope.
Okay. Does somebody wish to?
Second.
Thank you. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor? Okay. Good. And so that brings us to number D, and this is a letter that we authorized me to draft. We did this at our last meeting back in November, and so I put together a very simple letter, and what I did is I simply said, we would like, in the coming fiscal year, which begins January 1st, 2023, July 1st, 2023, we would like exactly the amount of money that we got into in our two planning board line items last year. which is $3,000 for advertising public hearings to review subdivision regulations, and $10,000, which gives us some money for technical and professional and legal expertise when we need to bring somebody in that is not employed by the town of Tiverton. So those are the two, so no change there, just a continuation of what we had last year. And what we have in the current fiscal year, rather, that will expire at the end of the year, so it needs to be specifically renewed. And I did justify those two amounts in my letter. And then I just, in the final paragraph, I simply said, we are very concerned about moving ahead with updating our zoning ordinance so that it carries out the recommendations of our 2018 Comprehensive Community Plan. And things are happening behind the scenes already on that, which I won't even get into. So that's what I had in my letter. So, and you've had it for some time. I think I asked Ed to get it out to you on the early side, so you could chew it up and spit it out. So, does anybody want to make a...
Did you actually, in the last, because I don't have it, in the last, we're not just concerned, but we're requesting, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're requesting...
Yeah, so I'll read it. Finally, the board recognizes the urgent need to bring the zoning code into alignment with the current comprehensive community plan and appreciates your consideration of how this important task should be tackled in a timely fashion. So, I had something stronger, but we had to take it out because we didn't want to. That's what you get. So, does anybody wish to?
I'll make a motion to approve Stu's letter as written.
Brilliant letter.
Stu's
That was just a joke. Stu's letter, okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. From Amanda, do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion.
Very good. No, I'm voting Stu.
Oh, okay. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor? Ed, should I come in tomorrow and sign this? Okay. I'll come in tomorrow and sign this. Okay. Okay. So that brings me to item number E. And this one I'd just like to continue. I'd like to talk to Tricia, and I'd like to talk to also to Rick Rogers. I've already had a conversation with him about setting up a workshop, an informal workshop. Anybody can come or not come. It's not mandatory. Probably be on a Saturday morning sometime this winter. But I'm going to like to continue this item so that I can have some further discussions, and I'd like to discuss this with some members of the planning board who are interested as well to see, exactly what we should do and when we should do it. I haven't had time to get around to it yet, so I'd like to carry this item. This is agenda item 5E. Carry this over workshop on two items, how to read plans and how to access sophisticated mapping. Just carry that on to our February agenda, to our January agenda. And we can, maybe I will have time over the holidays to do something there. So that brings us to agenda item 5F, unless you have questions about that. And by the way, if anybody would kind of like to take ownership of that, that would be really wonderful. Take it off my shoulders, but if not, that's okay.
Take ownership of what?
Yeah, I was going to say, what are you looking for ownership of? What
Well, the GIS presentation, I don't care about that.
I mean, I can do a session with you on using the GIS and site plans, and everyone can ask pertinent questions, and we can put something together relatively easily.
Yeah.
Without you feeling like you have this pressure of having to spend time on it. over the holidays.
Because I don't understand it. I mean, that's why I want it.
I'll do it.
Well, just show them the GIS.
Well, the GIS is easy. I mean, we can do that. We can put it on a laptop. We can project it on the screen. We can go through what's available. It's pretty straightforward in terms of what's there. You can't do a whole lot. You can't do like analysis or anything with it. You can use it to look at aerial photographs. You can turn the zoning on and off. You can add wetland layers.
Yes,
you can
yes,
click
yes.
that stuff
Yes.
on and off.
Yes.
We can do that
Yes.
relatively easily.
Yeah.
And then if there are, newer members that are still struggling with reading a site plan or what to look for.
Look, I've been around for 13 years, and I'm having trouble reading a site
We can
plan.
go over that also. That's easy. We can do that.
Not to me, it isn't.
No, I mean, it's easy to put something together, it's easy to put something together where we can go through those questions and
So
we
are
can
you
have a
volunteering
workshop.
to
Sure,
do-
I'll volunteer.
Super, thank you so much.
Actually, we
Yes.
also suggested inviting the zoning board to come.
Sure.
And we might even want to invite conservation and open space.
Yeah.
I mean, but certainly zoning, because zoning has to read maps, and I mean read plans, and I'm not sure that, they're any better than we are.
It would probably be also helpful, and I can talk to Nathan, but it might be nice to have Nathan there too, to give you
Yes.
that kind of engineering perspective,
Yes.
to go through and
Yes.
point out like what things mean and, which,
Yeah.
because an engineered site plan, it can be overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. I don't know where to go
Yeah.
first.
So it might be helpful to have him there where he can help kind of show
Super.
people what's important and what you don't really need to pay
Super.
attention to that he's looking at for you and the things that you need to
Super.
focus on.
Thank you, Ashley. Let's keep this on the agenda just so it doesn't fall through the crack. But absolutely, and any timing is fine.
I would maybe, if everyone's comfortable with that, we could do something in January.
Sure.
Okay.
And we did this like 5 or 6 years ago. Conservation did it, and there was a pretty good turnout, but it's been a while.
Okay.
So.
Super. Okay. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to item F, which is discussion regarding opportunities to convey planning board and project information to the public. And I believe that Christine was the one who raised this issue, and I thought it was really terrific, because I don't understand social media, but apparently a lot is going on.
Bit of a firestorm.
Tell us about it, and tell us how we can fix it, or at least we can.
So obviously, those of us on social media can feel the frustration in town over a lot of the projects that come through the planning board. And I think it has a lot to do with not only access to the project information itself, but an understanding of how the planning board works and our process. I don't think that that's clear. So I did some research on how other communities do it, because my colleagues are sitting on other planning boards and they don't necessarily have these issues. Some do, obviously, but and I came up with a list of just things to talk about that could be updates to our website, updates to our process, just for open discussion. I don't know if these are things that, are even possible, but I figured we would just start the conversation. So I'll just go through my list and stop me if you want me to stop somewhere. One is posting our agenda directly to the website and including past agenda and minutes on our website. That would be helpful. Making the meetings watchable via a Zoom link and have the past, I think it's on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Links on our website as well. That happens a lot in other communities. A lot of communities have a place on our website to post all of the project documents, both current and past, which I think Todd also brought up. A way to communicate when we're going to have a special meeting. I think there's some confusion, even though it's a possibility, people don't know that we're actually going to implement that or I think it came up tonight, making it clear that they can email their questions and concerns if they don't want to come down to this meeting. Making it clear that this is a voluntary board and how they can apply. I think a lot of people, especially on social media, said, you know, if you don't like what we're doing, get out and vote. That makes no sense. You know, I think it's not clear that this is a volunteer.
I'm confused why we can't have a Facebook.
Why you can't have a Facebook?
Facebook group.
Monitored by who, administered by who, I guess?
Well, I would guess the planning department or, I mean, someone that can just put information out there without people being able to comment on it. You know, like a group page or a business page, you know what I mean? And you can just block commenting and just have informative stuff out there.
So, and I'm gonna defer to you on this, but I don't know if the law has changed, I don't know. But some number of years ago, there was some discussion about having a Facebook page, not for the planning board. It might have been a council, when I was first on the council, I'm not sure. But the answer was no. And the reason the answer was no is that if you're gonna publish information somewhere, you have to make it fully accessible. And there are people in the world that don't have access to Facebook or don't have access to a computer. And so you can't put information in one place that you're not gonna put in other public places.
But it would be
You
in
have to
both
register.
places.
You have to register for like Facebook, I think is what your point is.
Well, and I think this is the way it was explained to me, is that if you're going to, whatever it is, publish information, answer questions, whatever it is, and you're gonna do it on Facebook, you're gonna have to do it on printed media somewhere too. In other words,
Equal access.
Yeah, there has to be, under Rhode Island law, there has to be equal access to information. And I think that that's why, and I'm not sure, you don't see very many, at least in the state of Rhode Island, government Facebook pages, because however the law is written here, you can't.
You're opening yourself up to making a mistake by not posting in both places.
Because you
Well, I know
could be
like our police department
you could be
and
excluding
stuff
people.
has a Facebook page where they put out information.
They serve a very different function, though, than you do.
Right.
You're making decisions that are held to a different standard.
Well, we wouldn't be putting the information like that out. All we would be doing is putting out when meetings are, what they're about, like, just pretty much like our agenda, so that people can actually know. I mean, I don't buy newspapers. Newspapers are almost an obsolete thing. So, I mean, everyone gets their information off of social media. It'll go to websites. I can't tell you the last time I went to a website besides Amazon. So.
I think I just defer to Todd to look into that and whatever the Rhode Island law is before we get too far down the road, only to find out that we can't actually do that.
I'm not saying like putting anything out there where people can make comments or discussions, or we would be talking about anything. It's just like actual information, like this is what we're gonna be talking about, like just like the agenda, just sharing the agendas, sharing valuable links.
You're saying it's stuff that already exists in whatever platform it is, it's just this is
on
another
Facebook.
platform.
Yeah.
Or can you, I don't know Facebook, I don't use Facebook, proud to say. Could we just post an agenda and prohibit people from
Correct.
commenting?
Correct.
You can.
Correct.
I'll look into it, I have no
You'll
idea.
have to ask, I think the issue is, in other words, though, in order to access that, you have to join Facebook.
Right.
And that was part of the issue.
That's my concern too.
You can't just go on a website and see it, you have to join Facebook. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just telling you that at one point, we thought about this and for something else and that didn't. You know,
But then
I
there's
think,
the people that can't afford to buy a newspaper.
well, I don't know, but the state law says when you advertise things, you have to advertise in the newspaper, that's the state law. You know.
When was that law
enacted, like 1902.
Probably,
but it's still-
and
but it's still on the
probably
books.
the newspaper owners lobbied for it.
Exactly.
Right, but it's still on the books.
I understand. I'm just rising.
You know, I think the thing that, and maybe Christine has more input on this because she's talked to other people. I don't necessarily think, and although I think they're really good ideas, that the issue is one of access. I think the fundamental issue starts with an understanding of what the planning board can do and can't do.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Because
my next
at
one,
a-
is that it's
yeah,
like
at a
understanding the
basic level,
parameters we have, because I think a
people
big
think
part of the frustration.
If we just don't like it, you can just vote no.
Exactly, and that's not
how it works.
We need to go with the comprehensive plan, and I think if they understood that, like, these are the 5 things we're looking for, then they can come up here and say, this is why I think it doesn't comply with A, B, or C, D. And then they feel like they've been heard, we feel like we're getting pertinent information and not just hearing the same things over and over again.
It may be useful to create, a page for the planning board that provides an overview of, like, this is what your role is. These are the standards that you have in order to make decisions. And, that way, if people become interested in a particular issue for the planning board, they could find that webpage relatively easily, and they might have a better understanding coming to a meeting that this is how the process works. These are the standards that you're all, abiding by. It can also be helpful at the beginning of meetings that are somewhat controversial, where you have a large audience, to take a few minutes for either the chair or the planner to address the audience and say, this is the process. It's a 4-step process for major land development. We're at the master plan stage of review, and kind of give them an idea of how the process works, and that they'll have a chance to speak at the master plan, but that if a master plan is approved, it then goes to preliminary, and there's more engineering, and you'll have another chance to speak at preliminary, and that can often make people, it takes away the anxiousness they feel sitting in the audience, watching the meeting happening and hearing the planning board and the applicant having an exchange, not fully understanding at what point they get to participate. So laying that out at the beginning of larger projects that are more controversial can help people kind of feel better about what they're listening to and what that process is.
I think a piece of that is a lot of what's happening on social media is that people don't understand that process. They hear about a project, they come down, they don't realize that we're on a particular topic, and then they're furious because they just sat through a 4-hour meeting and they don't get to talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And that's understandable. I mean, I would be mad too. So if they understood that this is what's happening and when it's happening, and if you don't want to come down, that they can email, and that's okay too.
And I think you can put all of that stuff on a page specifically for the planning board that provides that information to people when they start to hear about things and they start to search on the internet, what's going on. Hopefully they stumble across that page and they get more information and they understand the process better before they get upset about what's going on, or before they come down here and get disappointed because they didn't get heard. Or
So our website is the place to start the process, because we're talking about a long-term process of doing a better job of communicating with the citizens of Tiverton in particular. So when I try to access a meeting that has been televised or recorded on YouTube, I go to our website and there's nothing there. So then I go to the town council website and I click on YouTube, and a bunch of town council meetings come up, and school committee meetings come up, and budget committee meetings come up, and I search and search, and then I finally find something that's way out of date. And so I look around a little bit more. It takes me a long time to find the meeting that I actually want, and it's certainly not on our website. So that's something to start with, because having our meetings televised is really, really, really great. And thank you so much, Deb, for making that happen or helping to make that happen. Because if people can actually see us doing our thing, they realize that we're not the bad guys that they thought we were. So that's one thing I'd like to say. Secondly, some really pertinent information is just not getting on our website. We do now have 2 written decisions. Last time I checked, which is about a week ago. But I think we should have written decisions going back 3 or 4 months, so people can look at projects they're interested in as, there's the decision that the planning board made for a preliminary plan, or there's the final plan decision, and read it. And it's right there at their access. And then there are some little technical glitches that could be improved easily. So when I went on the website about a week ago, I noticed, well, if you have a question for the planner, you can email planner@tiverton.ri.gov. So I did that, and I got an automatic response back from Jennifer. Oh, she's still with us. She hasn't left. She emailed me last week saying, I'm not in the office. Please contact somebody or other. So those little glitchy things can be cleaned up. But it's a work in progress, and we're understaffed, and Ed and Ashley have all kinds of stuff they're trying to deal with. But little by little, when you get a chance, Ed, go through and just make a note to yourself, of all of the little things that probably need to be cleaned up. And I think I would be willing to do maybe a, simple question and answer thing that we could post on how we actually operate. People don't know. When I was reappointed a few months ago, I was asked by a council member, well, does the planning board ever take into consideration when you're dealing with a project, how many jobs that application would create for the town of Tiverton? Well, I wish we could, I wish that was one of the criteria in the 5 findings that we have to make, but it's not. So a lot of people think that we have a lot more ability to say yay and nay than we actually have. We are very constrained in what we can do, and all of those things, Christine, that you mentioned, I think would be improvements.
Just really quick, last week I talked to David Robert. We removed Jennifer from the website, so she's no longer on the page. So if you go to our planning department, it just says our open position, planner administrative officer of the planning or the planning board, and then it says under that my email and phone number. And that was changed last Friday. So we were able to update that.
Does the email link for planning board email go to Jennifer?
No, it shouldn't. That should go to Stu.
It doesn't. It goes to Jen.
It goes to planner.
It goes to planner. Okay.
And you still get the automatic response, I believe. Ed, try it yourself.
Okay. And that's on the planning board.
That's fine.
So one thing I'm going to mention that as we're talking about this, I'm noticing, I think it's a bit confusing that there is a department planning board page that has virtually no information at all. And in order to find any of this, I have to go search for the planning board page, which is where all the regulations are linked and decisions are linked. It's not that user-friendly to have those 2 things be separate, in my opinion, because I don't necessarily know that I'm going to look for the planning board to find links to regulations. I would put these things together. I would put most of the information on the planning department web page and then put a link to the planning board. You know, leave it the way it is with the drop-down menu and you can go find it. But then you could put a link so that if I'm on the planning department web page and I'm seeing all of this information, that then there's a section on that page that talks about the planning board and then could take me to the planning board, directly link me to the planning board page, because I think people are going to miss information this way. Typically, it's usually set up so that the planning department is kind of the clearinghouse for all of this information, and then the planning board would be separate but connected.
Okay.
That's just my take on it.
And we updated the recent decisions as well. And right now I'm only giving the decisions for major land developments or DPR projects, or like, or the minor subdivision like Lake Road or anything like that, but administrative subdivision, the decisions that haven't been posting, I can include those as well if you want.
All decisions should be there.
Yeah, probably all decisions,
Okay.
you know, probably all decisions, but certainly,
So it's
because
like-
people do sometimes get really interested in the administrative subdivisions.
Okay, so like right now we have like Bayview Condo, Seasons Market, like Road Acres, Picasset Reserve. So we'll include.
How many do you have? Because I checked a week ago and there were only 2 on there.
December 1st, they're dated.
Yeah.
2 more.
So looks like they were posted on the first.
Good. Okay, so, well, again, a work in progress, but I think it's a work that we should all pay attention to and you know, clean up over time. So anybody else on that? Anybody else? Pardon?
Did you have more?
No, that pretty much gets it. I guess my question is like, how do we do that? If we're putting it all on Ed, that seems unreasonable.
Well, we need a full-time planner/AO, and we need a full-time land use clerk. We don't have that now.
I'm full-time.
I know, but we don't have a full-time planner AO. We have Ashley, thank you, Ashley, and Ashley does great, but Ashley is not full-time. And believe me, it's a full-time job, particularly now. So that's why, you know, but believe me, things are a whole lot better now than they were 6 months ago. So we are moving in the right direction. We are finding problems and tackling those problems and cleaning things up. And we're also expediting the way the planning board operates so that we can move quicker and get still doing a thorough review of applications, but making decisions in a much more efficient way than we had been before. So, and I thank Todd and Ashley for coming up with some of those strategies. And we're also making a lot of progress on our minutes. Thank you, Ed. So things have improved enormously in the last 6 months. But again, it's a work in progress, and we have to keep trying and keep making progress. So, Christine, that was very good of you to call our attention to that, because that's been kind of bugging me. Every time I go on the website, it's aggravating.
Can you email me your list?
Yes.
And I'll work with Ed to see the simple things at least.
Would you
we can
email
get
it
done
to me
first.
too? Because I'd like to give it further consideration.
And I don't know if someone in particular in the town has to make these changes, but if it's something that I can volunteer to help with, I'm happy to. I mean, I did my company's website. So
Oh, really? Good.
I don't know, it might be a legal thing that someone has to touch front.
Dave Robert would love you. He's our webmaster.
It's also about writing the content, though.
Yeah, and I mean.
If you want to write
I'm
content.
the director of marketing for my firm, like, this is what I do every day. So I'm happy to at least take a first shot.
I'm not going to turn it down. But
No. Okay.
do you want Christine to take a first shot at
trying to do some.
I mean,
Right.
I'm happy to work with you as well. I've created, and I have to look and see if I still have them, but I for something, created some flow charts that basically take you from the beginning of a project and through, you know, what the steps of review are. If I can find those, maybe we could bring those out and you guys could all take a look at them, and that might be something that's helpful that you could put on here that gives people the ability to like click on the link, like minor subdivision, and then it would be a flow chart that kind of brings people through a process so that they better understand what applications are about and how they get processed.
Thank you, Ashley. We had flow charts initially when we started this, and there was a red manual, and I know when I was chair, I always had a session with the new people that would be coming on, and we would go over this red manual, had everything in it, but it's disappeared. So, but flow charts are very helpful.
All right, let me see if I can find those, and if not, they're not hard to put together.
Yeah, there's nothing on our website that explains the process at all.
Yep.
Nothing, zero. And there should be.
And I think if you're going to explain the process, that like the really fundamental question is, for a lot of people, is not the sort of, if you can keep them long enough to get them through the master preliminary plan thing, but just the whole idea that there are zoning laws,
right,
and that zoning is created by the town council, but with the voice of the people. There's a public hearing before any, like this is your zoning if you didn't participate, you know, and that if something's legal under zoning, just because nobody likes it
doesn't mean you can deny it.
Doesn't mean that you can deny it. And I really think that there's this concept out there that if we don't like it, then you can deny it, and I don't think people really understand that.
I agree with that, and I think there's also, you know, to complicate that misunderstanding, there's a misunderstanding that you can't just rely on, you need to have evidence. Like, you can't just rely on somebody standing up at a public meeting and saying traffic is horrible. That doesn't give you the ability to deny an application because they said traffic was horrible, when their traffic engineer, who's an expert in traffic, has said there's no issue with traffic. So it gets very confusing for a member of the public who doesn't understand the process, doesn't understand that, you know, zoning says this use is allowed, and then on top of that, it gets even more confusing when they're saying it's bad and someone else is saying it's okay, and they think you're not listening to them, and I mean, in my experience, that causes a lot of anxiety for people and anger at the public process.
Yes, and if people have participated in putting together the comprehensive community plan, and we had scores of people involved last time in something called the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee, and we had public meetings, and we had charades, and we had this, that, and the other thing. Charades. Charades. You know, and then we had some good recommendations, but those recommendations were never implemented in zoning because we never got around to updating our zoning based on what we had done in 2018. So that's another frustration some people have. Okay, anything else on that? It's, again, something that we'll be looking at in the future. So thank you for raising it, Christine. So I believe that brings us to, do we have any minutes to approve?
No, I didn't finish the last
I haven't gotten it.
November 15th.
We have November 1st, we haven't approved.
Do we have November 1st? I didn't see that in my pile of junk. Oh, yes, we do. We have November 1st.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any corrections to the November 1st meeting minutes?
I have a comment.
Okay, a comment from
And
Rosemary.
our legal eagle doesn't agree with me because he says they're public record, but I believe that the decision, the conditions on a decision should be included in the minutes. But Todd says that they're public documents.
What did I say?
No, on my note, that when I did the draft, I said, please add the conditions, and you said they weren't necessary because they were public information, they would be in the decisions.
The decisions are the
Yeah, and the
final
decisions
say.
aren't up on the website, and this is so helpful, the minutes, if you just have the conditions in there.
I think conditions should be in the minutes. You know, conditions are really, really, really vital, and, you know, people should be able to go to the minutes and find those.
Here, excuse me, here's why I said that, Rosemary.
Okay.
Because we don't go through the 5 criteria
No,
in the minutes either.
general summary.
We just say findings of fact as presented based on the memorandum planner. I mean, if you want the conditions listed, we will. I was trying to keep it consistent because we don't go through the criteria that's required for each application. I don't care. I don't. I'm trying to keep it consistent. And if the minutes aren't on the website, the decision is going to be on the website.
Yeah, eventually.
They are going
They
on the
are,
website now.
Yeah.
And eventually, both the minutes and the decisions will be on the
Right.
website.
Good. Right.
So,
But when we approve an application, whether it's preliminary plan or master plan, preliminary plan, or final plan, where we make conditions on master plan and preliminary plan, that's really important, I think. That goes right to the heart of what we do. And I think that there needs to be a public record of that in the minutes itself. Now, the findings tend to be more generic and more general, but the conditions are very specific, and that's where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion.
we're going to clarify that
so-
because we're on TV. Your findings are specific as well to the criteria and the evidence the competent evidence that is presented.
Right, right.
Just as specific as your conditions are.
Right, but the conditions have more impact on the project than the findings of fact have. And so that's, I think, something that really needs to go in the minutes, as well, obviously, as the written decision. So that's just my opinion. But those conditions are always written out in advance, and so we can just give Ed the hard copy that I read or somebody else reads when we're making a decision and setting conditions, and then Ed has those, and he can just scan those into the minutes. So we're not putting a burden on Ed, I don't think. So, but it's really important to have, thank you, Rosemary, I agree. So going forward, please add conditions. So, anything else, Rosemary, because we are now talking about the November 1st minutes, and so I'm going to make a motion to approve the November 1st minutes as presented. I had no corrections to make. Did anybody have any corrections? Seeing none, would anybody like to make a second so that we can have a second? Christine is seconding the approval of the November 1st, 2022 minutes. Hearing no further discussion, all of those in favor? And I think you can't vote because you weren't here. You weren't here. So, you weren't. Okay, so Tricia was not a member, and Amanda was not in attendance. So, but 4 of the 6 did vote, and I think that's all that's needed, just a majority of those present.
That was the one I called out.
So,
Was it the 15th or the 1st, Chris?
I'm thinking
I don't have the
it might have been
15th.
You were not here, you're right.
You don't have the 15th.
So it's right, you don't have a quorum. We're not next month.
Okay.
I was in Antigua. That's where I was. Thanks, guys.
You can't go there anymore. Okay.
No, we had discussion and possible vote on what, H?
Taking one and passing it down.
Planning office report.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ed, I'm neglecting the, oh, yes, I forgot to turn the page. There's an H, planning office project status sheet and office updates. Okay, we're handing this out.
Take one and pass it down.
Handing out tonight.
There's an extra one for the computers as well.
Sorry, I'm getting really screwed up. No, there's no extra.
So we're not going to see a minor subdivision page right now because we just approved our Lake Road Acres, which was the only current minor subdivision that we had in front of us. But you'll see administrative subdivision, and you'll see the major land development page, and you'll see the final plan, the projects that are in the final plan of development. I don't know if anybody have any questions on anything that's been coming in. This is pretty current. I don't think there's anything else.
I have a question.
I think we do need to update some of this, because I'm looking at like Brookdale. This needs to reflect that remember we had a conversation with them and I told them, because they made changes to the building, they flipped the building, and I said, if you're gonna flip the building, then you're gonna agree to pulling your submission date back to the date that you replace those sheets, because this is confusing, this won't reflect the correct certificate, because it was certified on the 21st.
Okay.
So that we need to account for that.
Okay.
And on 730 Main Road, we should fill in, because it was certified complete, so we should fill in the certification date and the time clock date.
Okay.
And we should fill in the time clock date for Souza Road condos, because it was certified on the 20th.
Okay.
And I have changes to the spreadsheet that I'm working on, I just can't get them done.
It's okay.
Because I want to change the format a little bit, but I haven't had a chance to finish that.
I have a question. We got an email. Should we have on the agenda, Todd, should we have a catch-all thing here for correspondence? I got a letter about the Hicks property. I trashed that.
That was just to be
sold.
distributed to the planning board, which it was my understanding.
Should we put a correspondence?
Can you put something that non-specific? Because then
Yeah.
you can't really discuss.
That's a problem.
What's under that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You can't put something that general and then discuss something specific.
Sue asked that I distribute it to the board, to just update that the property was sold, so I just.
I trashed the huge thing.
So I
fine.
think in the future, if you get correspondence and it rises to the level of discussion where you want to talk about it, let Ed know, and then it would have to get listed on an agenda so that it could be discussed.
I don't, he sent us something too on Lake Road from, I think it was from Bill Smith.
That was the final approval. That was Bill Smith's inspection that you had
Okay.
requested and made. The application
That was just to
contingent on-
let you know that Bill
The
did what
drainage
you
letter,
asked.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't, the chair doesn't have to bring it up, okay.
Well, you asked for it to be submitted to the planning board,
All right,
so Bill did that.
saying it
You
acknowledged.
yelled at Ed for not distributing everything, he did.
Consent
Now he's in trouble
agenda.
again.
Consent. And this was nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Ed, thank you for this.
Okay.
We need to also add now the Secundit Bay Manor, because although that doesn't generate a lot of traffic, it will generate a little bit more. And maybe also, if possible, indicate the villages at Mount Hope Bay, because their final phase is still, well, I think they finally finished construction late summer, but I'm not sure that they've sold all of those units yet, so people should be aware of the fact that now that is finally built out. And we had a discussion at our last meeting about sharing all of this information with the appropriate official at Rhode Island Department of Transportation. So are you making sure that RIDOT gets a copy of the plans of stuff that comes in this Yeah, that's great. Because then because they might just blow it off and throw it in the recycle bin. But you know what? We've done our best, and they can't say, well, Tiverton never told us.
Right.
So Tiverton needs to tell them that the development pressure in this immediate neighborhood is intense, and it's not going away, and it's going to get even worse in the future. So
Ed's done his part on that.
And
the town administrator is going to follow up with the director, actually.
well, yeah, we can't control that, but thank you, Ed, for
trying.
All I care about is that Ed is sending the material to RIDOT, so that's great. And is there anything going on with Friendship Farms? Because this has master plan review is pending? Has the master plan actually come in on
It
Friendship?
hasn't. I put that on there because it was just something that I had kind of as inactive because it came in front of us, I think, in August, and I thought he was going to be submitting a lot sooner.
So you're
than
just
he
carrying,
has. So
you're
I
just carrying it on
I
because
just carried it on.
because it could come back.
There's
Yeah,
a
it could
chance
come
he
back.
might not
Okay.
submit anything.
No, that makes sense. Yep.
But isn't there a
That makes
duplex,
sense.
isn't there a duplex being constructed
There-
on that property?
Yeah,
There are
so he's-
several.
Yeah, he's actually.
Huh? Several.
I believe what
One.
he is doing. Yeah, it's one, I believe. Over there, obviously. The building official checked in on it. Said everything was.
He's entitled to have one structure on the parcel.
I saw two foundations, but maybe that's for the two units of one building. I don't know, but they're distinctly two different foundations on that site. You can see it from Stafford Road. Okay, good.
Regular meeting.
Good. Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
No, with next regular meeting, number 6.
Oh, yeah.
I was so excited. Thank you, Rosemary.
Okay.
Oh, it's not, it's the 10th.
January 10th.
Yeah, January 10.
All right.
And then February 7.
It's February 1. Okay.
January is late because of New Year's.
Can I make a privileged motion?
Please make a privileged motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:37.
Second, third, fourth, fifth.
No privilege doesn't need it.
I oppose.
Thanks, Steve.